Bungie bought by Sony.
Suicide Squad wait to kill the Justice League. Chung. Well, hello there, and welcome to Triangle Square, the PlayStation podcast. I'm your host, Brett Beck, and this week we are complete. We are host complete, and I'm joined by the man. Where does the man, the myth, the legend thing start from? Either way.
Nope. That's Saul Bridges, bringing y'all lucky episode 247. We're back here, like Brett said again. Alongside me, as usual, is Mr.
Chris Figs. Hi.
There we go. And we are Triangle Squared, PlayStation podcast. You can find out where to find us a little bit later on in the episode. Until then, we'll start the episode out like we always do. And we like to go through what we've been playing this week. Chris, we'll hit you first. What have you been playing this week?
Only Sekiro.
only Sekiro.
Like religiously.
Yeah. It's like I said to Brett, I can't stop playing it because if I stop playing it, I won't be good at it anymore.
You'll lose the juju. I mean, it's true though. There's something about those games where the entire time I was playing Mortal Shell, the entire time I was going through Bloodborne Platinum, I was like, do not play anything else. Yeah. You've got to be in the zone at all times.
Yeah, I even noticed it where like I was fighting the last boss. I've been fighting the last boss for like 3 days, so pray for me. But I got him to his second. I guess it depends on how you consider the last boss, but I beat the first section of the last boss. Saul knows what I mean. I beat the first section of the last boss and then got a health bar and a half through the second one.
Oof.
And then I was like pissed. Went to bed, woke up, couldn't even beat the first stage for like another half an hour. So like in that little bit of time I stayed away, I lost my skill.
Yeah.
So
could you imagine spending a whole day away from it while playing something else?
No.
Ooh.
It sucks because I really want to play Dying Light, and I'm like, I'm not playing it until I beat Sekiro.
Am I crazy? Is that a Games Pass game?
What?
Dying Light.
Dying Light 2 or the first one?
2.
No.
I didn't think so. I swear I saw somebody say they picked it up on Games Pass, and it had me questioning my reality for a second. I was like, what?
If it is, I've missed that entirely, but I'm pretty sure Chris
I'm pretty sure it's not.
It's not.
Yeah,
it's not a Game Pass game.
I mean, that would have been a good get for Game Pass, if I'm being honest. If they had gotten it, that'd have been a big deal. But, not that I've heard. So,
yeah. So Chris has been only on Sekiro. Brett, have you been on anything?
12 minutes.
Oh, I did do that.
Yeah, you did do 12 minutes.
We all played 12 minutes this week. This is pretty crazy.
I forgot that you did that.
No, I'll resume my playthrough.
Have you beat it yet?
No, I'm resuming my playthrough tomorrow night.
I beat it. Something happened. I had to beat it again. But I got the platinum. I didn't realize that it was platinum 119, which is I don't know how I didn't realize I was a 118, but I guess I haven't gotten a platinum in so long that my brain was completely removed from it. So when I got the platinum and checked, I was like, 119? Why do I feel like I gained 10 platinums in some random interval that I was unaware of? So now I feel this weird pressure of like, wait, what's 120 going to be? And Chris and I were like ballparking well, right now, logistically speaking, for what's coming out, it seems like it'll either be Destiny 2 if I can manage to get the Grandmaster in, or it'll be Horizon Forbidden West.
I was going to say, it could be Horizon.
Yeah, those seem like the most likely plats.
Elden Ring.
Oh, the only FromSoft game that I have a platinum on is Bloodborne, and the only Souls-like game outside of that I have a platinum on is Mortal Shell. So I don't think that's going to be happening, but
do it, coward.
I'm sure it's not as bad as the world tendency of Demon Souls or the ring multiple runs of Dark Souls 3.
No, it's all of them. All of them have those ring runs.
That is true, including Demon Souls, actually. But then you have to worry about the world tendency to get the rings.
Yeah.
That's the hard part for that one. Anyway, 12 minutes. Quite enjoyed that. I recommend it. There's other time loop games that are probably way more open. I could see that some people would get a little annoyed with the fact that you're always in the same area in this game. But I kind of think, if anything, it's amazing to see how much opportunity and how much interaction there is between all of the different things in the apartment. And what really got me, Chris, is whenever I had to go back through and do trophy cleanup, I actually got a couple of new things I hadn't done from accidentally doing things in different order that I thought I was doing in the order that I previously did, and then realizing that it acts completely different as a result. The small level of detail in that game is very impressive, whether or not it annoys some people or not, because of the fact that it's I get and I don't know if you had it, because I know you to a degree followed a guide to a degree. I don't know to what degree, but
once I got the perfect ending, I used a guide.
Gotcha. And I know Saul kind of knows what I'm talking about here too. There is that feeling of when you're supposed to do something, but you make a mistake, and then you're kind of like,
oh, nope.
However, I just learned to start walking out of the door. Like, oh, I messed up, walk out of the door, restart the loop.
Yeah.
But there's still that feeling of like depending on how late into the loop you screw up, you feel like I just wasted 5 minutes. Because I wasted 7 minutes, and now I got to walk out of the door because I just completely screwed up what I needed to do. So that's quite fun, though. Destiny 2,
as always,
quite a bit of.
Well, as usual,
trying so hard. I'm 1339, about to be 1340 because my Wayfinder's compass is about to hit +1 again.
What's GM Nightfall's 1350?
1345.
Yeah, you're only 6 levels away, though.
I'm close.
You should be able to do it, right?
I'm close. Yes, I should be able. Well, no, right now you can't. It's 1370.
Oh, never mind.
You can't match me without being 1345, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think you can open it.
Never mind. That's ridiculous, man.
Yeah, but we're gonna do it at 1345.
Yes.
Yeah, but still.
And it's looking like, depending on exactly when we try to do it, Lake of Shadows, I think, is going to be the final week rotation before
I'm gonna say
Witch Queen comes out.
That's a very quick strike. That's a very hard Nightfall.
I'm sure, but I think I'd rather do that than
the Corrupted.
The Corrupted. I don't think Proving Grounds is that bad, but I'll also say I'd rather do Lake of Shadows than Proving Grounds.
Proving Grounds is fairly easy. Proving Grounds, if I'm not mistaken, is the Servitor, right? Where you do Prison of Elders?
No. That one's Warden.
That's right. What is Proving Grounds?
Proving Grounds is, I don't know if you've done it, because I don't know how much of Season of the Chosen you did, but I think you did some of it. That's the one with Keitel, and you are on...
Yeah. Okay.
It's the moving one. You're on a tank, and you have to run across the treads.
Yep.
I don't think that one's that bad.
That does sound very familiar. I think I've done that one once.
Yeah, it's same as all strikes. It's just a switch up of a story mission. So I don't think I've played anything. I mean, I've played RuneScape. I've been questing it up, boys.
Have you?
I've been questing it up. For anybody who does RuneScape stuff, I've done in a week. I finished Legends Quest like a week and a half or 2 weeks ago. Since then, I've done Ghost Ahoy. I've done X Marks the Spot and Beneath Ice Mountain, 2 free-to-play quests that are newer that I'd never played. I did Haunted Mine. I've done a bunch of crap. I've done Forgettable Tale of a Drunken Dwarf. Right now, I'm starting on In Search of the Myrique. I'm doing a bunch of stuff. It's good times. I'm having it's been really weird because I just want to play a bunch of RuneScape, but I still want to play other games. And that's the MMO problem across the board, is that you want to play that game and you want to play other games. And yet the MMO tries to pull you. So it is what it is. But Saul, you, good sir, what have you been playing?
I actually started 12 minutes the week before last, but since I was gone out of town last weekend.
Me and you started on the same day.
Yeah, without any communication about it. It was really like choice or random. But I played through a couple of hours of that, and I plan on replaying that more tomorrow, the day this goes live. I have been playing Destiny. That's kind of been the usual. I kind of really haven't played much of anything this week until yesterday when I did play Destiny. But I did start Legends of Arceus. That's a shotgun of Destiny. Legends of Arceus on Switch, and I've played that for maybe 5 hours. It's a lot better than I anticipated it. It is kind of exactly what I've always pictured a open world Pokemon game to look like and play like. It's just cool. It's cool to see like the battle system and like you standing off to the side and seeing your opponent stand down that way, and then seeing the two Pokemon literally do moves with brand new animations for stuff. It's cool.
There's things I like about it. Having not played it, just looking at like other people playing it and looking at online stuff. There's things I like the element of you being around in the battle, and if you walk between Pokemon, you can get hit with the moves and stuff.
And
I like that. That's a nice level of detail. I do like that. I like that you throw the Pokemon out and the battles aren't separate instances anymore. Yeah. They just happen right there.
And it's the same for like throwing your Pokeball at trees and getting materials and stuff. I like just running, and I like see a tree with berries. I'm like, I throw it. I just keep on going where I'm going. And the Pokemon does it all and then it shoots back to me.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
And that's cool. I like that. I like the sense of scale that I feel like Pokemon was always missing.
Yeah.
Because now you can see all the Pokemon, and like you can actually see how much bigger Infernape is than Chimchar and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
A champion or Alpha Rapidash or something. And I was like, look at this big old boy. And I was like, I'm going to catch him, throw a Pokeball at him. That Pokeball bounced off his back and he just turned and looked at me red eyes. And I'm like, oh dear. I just started running.
That's cool. I like that there seems to be a better carrot on the stick for wanting to complete the Pokédex, because the way that it wraps into the story, it's learning about Pokemon. And
it's like the best weird combination of Let's Go and a normal Pokemon game.
I do agree with it's what I think Let's Go probably should have been.
Yeah.
Because I never liked the idea that it was so focused around catching without any of the other stuff. But I like that this is like, well, complete the Pokédex, and there's something to be learned there. I also like that there's like this sense of Monster Hunter-ness to it, where like you can see, or at least it seems like it, and you can probably confirm from what you've seen, it looks like Pokemon can kind of mess with other Pokemon to a degree, and you can kind of see.
I haven't seen that, but they do have different sizes. So like you can catch a smaller EV and the larger EV, and you do have weird Pokédex,
which is also true of the normal games. You'd find that, my EV, this EV is bigger than the last one.
True, but you never saw it visually represented that well.
Yes, exactly.
And this is like very clear. But yeah, then you have like Pokédex completion stuff you could do, like battle them a certain amount of times, catch them from behind a certain amount of times. Stuff like that.
Different move types is cool, where you have like the
like agility and power.
Yeah, agility and power. I was going to call it quick, basically quick attack and strong attack. But yeah, that's interesting. I like that idea.
This is the perfect test game for what I am excited to see them do next, because you take this Pokemon game and you have it's like a feudal Japan style samurai game, and then you put this exact same formula into a modernistic city like Black and White 2. It's going to be sick. It's going to be great.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see them kind of go back towards Black and White, because I feel like the games themselves haven't had worlds that felt as big and like huge city based since Black and White. Sun and Moon got like real, like we're going to be islanders, so it's going to be smaller, and then
Sword and Shield kind of had
X and
that
Y
with some
was a lot
areas,
smaller,
but some of the areas were more open. And X and Y was kind of like, it was France, but it was like small little pieces of France. So I really enjoyed all of the Pokemon landscapes except Sun and Moon. That's kind of my least favorite.
Yeah, what I noticed about it is that the Pokemon games, weirdly enough, I think Black and White and Black and White 2 were some of the best games that actually worked on showing a sense of scale while still being pixel art.
Yeah.
And something about the way they chose to use the camera in those games, for it being that kind of midway pixel art, actually ended up making it feel bigger than like Sword and Shield, because Sword and Shield has big areas. Like there's that area like that has the castle, and then I think it's called Rose Tower, the one that you have to battle on going up to Eternus or whatever his name is.
Maybe so, yeah.
Anyway, none of them ever felt big enough, because unlike in the wild area where the camera is completely controllable, once you get out, the way that they ended up controlling the camera was never set low enough or swooped or did anything that conveyed scale. So things just didn't feel as big as you could clearly tell they were meant to.
But
Black and White has that thing when you're going around the bridge.
It's like zoomed
out. And
the
camera pulls out and you see this massive city, and it's like you go from feeling like it's 2D to like you're 3D going around. It's like, wow, this feels massive.
Yeah. And Legends of Arceus does that really well too, of like running around using the camera everywhere, and like you can zoom in and zoom out like you could a third-person action game.
And there aren't cities, but you get to feel like the vastness of the landscape.
Yeah, you can tell this game's a little more empty because they're experimenting with this, and this is, like I said, a test run. I could fully see that this is we got Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, which is Red and Blue remakes. I think we're going to see a Legends of Lugia and Ho-Oh game, and it's going to be a remake of Silver and Gold in this way. I think this is the new way Pokemon's going to go.
That's what I was about to ask you. Is do you think Legends is an offshoot?
No, I think this is the new Pokemon games. I think this is how this works.
Well, considering that it's sold faster than Sword and Shield, which sold faster than everything else,
and I think it's going to be.
Seems likely.
I think it's going to be. They're going to test it out with this game, and they chose a time period in which there's not a lot going on. A lot of the areas are they have a lot of Pokemon in them, but they're empty in terms of like buildings because it's like feudal Japan style game. But I have a feeling that the next game they're going to do this with, they're going to experiment with a remake, and they're going to get their grasp on it even closer. And then the next game is going to be a full on. So the next Game Freak game is going to be my theory of this is Legends of Ho-Oh and Lugia.
I'd be surprised because it really looks like with Diamond and Pearl that they've become content with the idea of working on the newer Pokemon games and just letting other developers handle remakes.
That could be
which
true
has led to some things because I'll tell you, I'm really disappointed that Diamond and Pearl the remakes don't have the platinum content in it. That's unfortunate because every other remake always had the third game.
It has some of it in there, but it's not the same. But yeah. I realized playing Diamond and Pearl that I had a rose tinted glasses for those.
For that
I remember those games being a lot better than they were. And I'm not saying that they're bad at all. No, I don't think any Pokemon game is bad. But I definitely think I'm remembering my platinum runs more than Diamond and Pearl, and seeing that this is kind of just a slower paced Pokemon game like it was back then. I just remember maybe I did like platinum more so.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's like silver. If I'm being honest, silver and gold. Crystal's way better than silver and gold. If I'm being honest, it's just head and shoulders above.
I remember that a lot. Yeah.
And Emerald's a lot better than Ruby and Sapphire, if I'm being honest. I kind of do miss the third game thing because I always feel like it sucked, but if you would, whenever I was younger before, if you would wait for the third game, you get all the same content with all the new stuff too, and it's like, oh yeah. And then I normally try and borrow like gold or something from somebody so I can play it for a little while.
Yeah,
or,
I think Crystal and Emerald are my two favorite third games. Well, I say that all three of them, Crystal, Emerald, and Platinum, are just some of the best Pokemon games are. But anyways, off Pokemon, that's pretty much all I've played this week. So a little bit of variety. I see it kind of staying probably the same for next week, but we'll see. So
okay. Chris, did you end up picking up Pokemon?
Yeah, I've played a lot of it.
I thought you did, yeah. But you took a break this week?
Yeah, I just want to finish Sekiro because I really want to play Dying Light.
That day may or may not come, but we'll see.
Oh, it'll come.
Also, I just realized that I did not put the community's takeout. That's on me. Sorry, guys. I don't know.
I checked. It's Activision Blizzard.
Did I?
Yeah, that was last week's. Wouldn't it have?
I don't know. I don't feel like I did it. I'll take that on the chin. That's all me.
I feel like Activision Blizzard would have been last week's.
Yeah, no, that was the week before.
I was saying it'd be weird for us to talk about Activision, then have an episode completely after the fact, and then have that as the community's take.
Yep, all on
We've done it. We've done stuff like that before, but
oh well. Sorry, guys. I'm being a bad podcast host. I don't know what to tell you.
It'll be fine. We're getting our bearings straight again.
I've got excuses, but are they really going to change the fact that I didn't do it? No,
they're not excuses. They're reasons.
Actually, I do like that. I hate when people say that's just an excuse. I'm like, no, there are reasons that things don't happen.
Yeah.
Oh well, it doesn't matter.
Excuses are the foundation that built the house of failure.
Yeah. Okay. What about reasons? Are reasons the foundation that built the garage?
What built the house of doubt?
A day to remember.
Okay. What? Okay. Whoa. All right, Colin Moriarty, calm down.
Wow.
Whoa. Okay.
Pump the brakes.
Okay. Well, I guess moving on from that, we're going to go ahead and jump into the news, of which there is plenty this week, and a lot of PlayStation-focused news. Saul apparently thinks something's very funny.
I'm just laughing at the whole situation. It's funny.
I'm sure Colin thinks it's funny, considering he's just rolling in dough now. Way
more successful, yeah.
Anyway. First thing up for the news, as we wait for Activision's acquisition to go through, Infinity Ward have taken to Twitter to promise, quote, a new generation of Call of Duty is coming soon, end quote. They could, of course, be talking about a reveal coming sooner rather than later for their rumored and honestly at this point expected Modern Warfare 2 following up on 2019's Modern Warfare. We will see. Also wonder, is every release of Call of Duty a new generation of Call of Duty, or are they really pushing like they did with Modern Warfare, where this is going to be a new engine again? I would love to see Call of Duty have a new engine every 3 years, or, a big engine refresh, if nothing else. But the weird thing is, Modern Warfare came out, and then if I remember right, Black Ops Cold War did not even use Infinite Warfare's engine, and I'm not even sure if Vanguard used Infinite Warfare's engine.
Vanguard does.
Okay, so maybe not, because that engine hasn't been used that much. So maybe it makes more sense to just wait and see what happens. But or are they trying to tease? I really doubt it. I'm probably reading too much into it, because I don't see this happening yet. But it would be wild if the new Call of Duty is next gen exclusive. There's no way they would, because of how it would impact sales. But
a new generation of Call of Duty.
I mean, we'll see what ends up coming from it. Next thing up on the news, another day, another delay, as it appears that Rocksteady's long-awaited Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is being delayed to 2023, according to Bloomberg and Jason Schreier. After a recent tweet thread from the CEO at Warner Media talked about the coming year and big things happening, and only mentioning Harry Potter and Gotham Knights, it isn't surprising to hear this delay, as those were the two big games he looked at. To me, this seems like another case of showing things way too early. And if you think, we first heard about the game and they kind of teased about it in August 2020 with the reveal picture for DC Fandom, and then we saw the first look at it with that CG trailer in December 21. So this is unfortunate, but also not entirely surprising. I just have to ask, why did we need to see it as soon as we did? So, but we already know how Chris feels about the Flash here, so we're going to move along.
Yes, we do. Dumb.
Next thing up, Sony have launched a website for Ps Vr2, allowing fans to look at the controllers and feature sets talked about so far for the headset, but also offering the ability to sign up for notifications once the device opens up for pre-order. This could mean that a Ps Vr2 full reveal is not far off on the horizon, but don't get your hopes up too high. It's just interesting. I don't know why you'd worry about pushing this stuff out without having something up and coming. And also, they recently talked about PSVR or wanting to expand into VR. Let's see. Next thing up, and this one's pretty interesting. PlayStation's announced partnership with Discord is finally starting to bear fruit, as this week it was announced that players can link their Discord and PlayStation Network accounts. Currently, this is simply used for things that we've seen Xbox and PC games utilize, where it can show your current game activity on those systems on your Discord. But hopefully this partnership eventually leads to deeper integration. I think Saul and I have talked about this a lot, and games like Destiny and Apex and pretty much all crossplay games stand to gain a lot by being able to use Discord's voice chat to connect parties across systems without you having to seek that out on another device. Like right now when we play Destiny with Joe and everybody, and Eric, I've got to use my phone and a headphone, and I don't really like that because then I can't really hear the game. Exactly. I would love to be able to be on PlayStation, pop into the same Discord chat that we're on through my headphones, and be able to adjust the party versus game chat dial. And then Sony can also say at that point, well, anything that happens on this service is outside of us because it's Discord's agreement. So for anybody who's worried about, well, what if somebody says or does something that's against PlayStation's terms and services? Well, it's Discord.
True.
It's their thing. So I would love to see that. Saul, do you have any hopes past that?
I'm super excited. I've kind of gotten used to the fact that I used to use my computer for Discord, and I still do, because I have this issue, like no matter what, with earbuds, I can wear them for like 2 hours and then they start to get annoying.
Sure.
And like yesterday we played Destiny and I wore my earbuds. Well, I have wireless earbuds I was using on my phone, and they have some decent audio quality for a mic. So I was using those, but then it kind of got to the point of like taking them out, kind of like massaging the inner ear, I guess, or just kind of like, relieving the kind of irritation. And then eventually I was just like, I'm sitting next to my computer. My computer like 2 feet to my left.
And you could put overheads on.
I might as well just put overheads on. Yeah. I've actually started I plugged in my Astro mix amp that was with my old A40s, and I plugged that in my computer using that as a mix amp, and the audio quality has shot through the roof on my computer.
I think those have built-in amps built into them, right? That's the whole point of them.
Yeah, well,
they actually act as an actual amplifier.
Yes, but I'm also using it through optical too.
Oh, yeah, I forgot those have optical outputs.
Yeah, my motherboard has optical in.
Use them on PS4 Pro.
Yeah, no, you could use them on PS4 Pro.
You could use them on Slim.
Yeah,
that's what it was.
So, my motherboard has optical in, and then I've been using that, and it's been absolutely crazy how the quality has jumped from a
Between
USB
the
sound
two.
card to that. So, obviously it's not gonna make my mic sound any better, but it makes everything I'm hearing sound so much more crisp.
When we're playing computer on in Discord and we're playing like Halo Infinite or Among Us or whatever it be, I really do like the PC functionality of Discord, where if there's a game that somebody in your chat is in,
you could do invites.
You can do invites, and you don't have to do invites. Your party can just literally click join the player's active party. I would love to see that be handled in Discord for cross-play games to this point. And I don't know how feasible it is, but if it is, I would love Discord to be able to be the hub of that. You hit invite everyone, and then what it does is Discord delineates out, we're going to send this to Xbox, and then tie that person when it'll join, and then we can tie that back into the same thing on our side. We can send it to Switch, we can send it to PC, we can send it to PlayStation, and all of those will tie back into this, and then everybody can join a party in the game across disparate systems. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
And really streamline cross-play gaming.
I honestly think that for cross-play to excel, there has to be a platform in which you could do that on.
Well, it's got to get easier.
It does, yeah.
Because and there's things that go on in Destiny right now where it seems like PC users have more issues trying to chat within the voice of the game. So like when you're in a party in Destiny, you can just hear the other players if they're not already in another party. But like Joe has never been able to get it to work. So every time we end up having to default back to Discord, and then we have situations like when Chris and I were playing with Joe and Eric and everybody, and Sean doesn't have Discord. And so we kind of had this weird situation where I had to be this medium between the Discord and Chris and Sean. And I had to have one headphone in that had a microphone outside, and I put my other headphones on, and I could hear both parties and relay information. And that was kind of it wasn't that bad because we were just doing Riven, but I could see that for a full raid being super annoying, and I would have not agreed to do it for the full raid.
No, I mean, it definitely hurts your ears, because that's how I was doing the same thing, where I had one of my headphones in my ear and then I had my overheads over it, so I was still listening to the game. I was like, this is unnecessary.
Yeah, it felt ridiculous, and I was so glad that we were just doing Riven. But ideally, this Discord partnership is really deeper than that. I would feel kind of weird if PlayStation made this big announcement, and then the end of it is literally that PlayStation is just acting in the same way that Xbox has been acting for at least half of the Xbox One generation. You know what I mean?
PlayStation invested in Discord. There's no chance that this is it.
Yeah, I agree, but I'm just saying it'd be really interesting if this did end it. So I'm just more curious at this point, how long before we see that deeper integration? And then is it specific to PlayStation, or would PlayStation invest in them but then continue to push out and be like, hey, it'd be really beneficial? And there's something in the news later that I think might indicate that Sony would be more willing than anything to want to push this integration across as many platforms as they could. But we'll talk about that when we get to it. All right, next thing up, after seeing it at the PS5 reveal event, Grand Theft Auto 5 is coming to PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X on March 15th, and brings with it a standalone version of Grand Theft Auto Online that will be available free to PS5 players specifically the first 3 months of launch. Hot off the back of this, Rockstar also finally officially announced that development is ongoing for the next entry in the long-running series. Though I have to say, if anybody really thought that some form of development wasn't going on with Grand Theft Auto 6 for at least since Red Dead, you were fooling yourself. They're just now wanting to make you aware of it. That's really what's going on, you know? I don't know to what degree they were making it. Who knows? I wonder if they started messing with Grand Theft Auto 6 before Dan Houser left or after he left. Or
Schreier was saying it's probably will be a 2023 announcement with a 2024 delay. Like they'll announce 2023 as the release date, and then it'll be delayed to 2024.
Nah, that'll be interesting. We'll see. I mean, I think one of the big things that's happening here is Grand Theft Auto Online being completely pulled out of Grand Theft Auto 5 to where if you want to just play Grand Theft Auto Online, you can. Now, what's really interesting here is, what do you think, and I haven't looked to see if PlayStation or they have clarified, but what does free for the first 3 months mean? Does that mean the first 3 months you can get it and it's free in perpetuity as long as you get it? Like, is it a 3-month PS Plus title, or can you play it free of charge for the first 3 months, but no matter who you are, that 3-month mark hits, and if you don't own Grand Theft Auto or Grand Theft Auto Online and that you've bought, then you can't play it anymore? I'm really curious to see. I think so as well, because they know that they stand to still make a ton of money off of Grand Theft Auto Online. I think this is smart. I honestly am one of those people that would love to see it. We had it back on PS3 for like the very end of the generation. They did it with a handful of games. Killzone 3's multiplayer got broken out as a standalone multiplayer on PS3 that was, I think, free to play. I can't remember exactly, but I love that idea. If you have an online that's really active or could be really active that's tied to a story that people don't want to buy anymore, why not break it out, monetize it, and then have it be a separate online thing so that people can continue to have a high chance of being able to play it? As somebody who plays a lot of online, Chris, I'm sure you're of the mindset that you want to have as big a player base on any game as you can get.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah. So what's your thoughts on Grand Theft Auto here? I know that you think it's a big move, Chris. What you think?
I'm looking. I'll definitely play it. I'm interested to see if them breaking out the multiplayer means that they take multiplayer trophies out of the enhanced edition.
Oh, that would be kind of interesting.
That would be nice. I would probably go platinum that game if they did that.
So are you excited specifically for the campaign, or are you excited for the online as well?
The online sucks. I'm excited for the campaign.
It's really weird. Some people love that online, and they're like, the online's better than the game. I'm like, oh,
no.
Okay. I remember playing, now this has been forever. I played Grand Theft Auto Online on PS3, and it was terrible. I hated it. I was like, this is the worst. I don't know why anybody would want to play this, if I'm being honest. But
well, that was launch, man.
Yeah, and hey, it's probably a ton different now. I don't care.
It is different, and it's probably fine, but I never want to play it. I will play that campaign, which is, I love that campaign, and then move on to better games.
All right, so I'll see that you apparently had something to say here. What you thinking about this?
Yeah, I'm just excited. I'm kind of just curious to see what they do with it. More so, like how good it looks. I'm always down to replay the campaign for GTA 5.
I was really curious if when they first announced it, were they showing gameplay of it being on PS5 in like a realistic state? Because I don't feel like it looked that different. But at the same time, I think Grand Theft Auto 5 is a good looking game. Even as a PS3 game, it was a good looking game. So clearly it still looks good on PS4, and it will clearly still look good on PS5. But to what degree are they really going to improve it?
Well, the weird thing is everything I heard was that the footage in that trailer was PS3 footage.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean,
I don't know if that's true, but that is the scuttlebutt, as they say.
Yeah, I'd be really interested to see what they could eke out of that open world. Like, do we get 60 frames per second? Surely, right?
Yeah, oh, definitely.
Do we have 60 frames per second on the remaster on PS4? I didn't play it, so I didn't remember.
I don't think it's 60 frames. I might be wrong. It's been so long since I have played it.
Well, we will see, but I doubt I don't know. It'd be curious to see if we get 4K 60. It doesn't seem that crazy for a game that was built on the back of a PS3, but I don't really know what they plan on doing with it. I doubt it'll be too much. I mean, the weird thing is I doubt the expectation of the player base is really that high, because everybody's just going to be excited to be able to play Grand Theft Auto on a new system. You don't have to do that much more, right? It's just like, hey, yay, I can play this, but at the same time, you can play Grand Theft Auto 4. You can play Grand Theft Auto's PS4 version on PS5. So maybe there is a little bit more expectation.
I don't know. They did add first person in the PS5 and Xbox One version. So maybe PS4, this time Xbox One? They'll add like fourth person mode.
Isn't there a thing of like, what was it? Was it a second person? Somebody like figured out like the logistics of how you'd make a second person game since there's a first and third person game.
I've heard about that, but I have no idea what they did.
I can't remember either, but I remember being interested in it. I just don't remember. Maybe I didn't even read it all. Look into it though, if that sounds interesting to you at all, because if nothing else, I don't think they made a game, but I think someone described what a second person game would be like, which is.
I'm looking it up.
Weird. It almost sounds like, would it just be someone would it be you narrating events that you don't even see? Because like the whole thing of third person is that you control it.
Well, I feel like it would be if you played Skyrim, but entirely as Lydia.
Now, but to what degree? Like where
Like you're watching
literally
Skyrim play out, but you are just following the character and watching what they do.
But then you'd still, from a first-person camera's perspective, or what would the camera perspective be? I think that's the biggest question for people is, what is a second-person camera perspective?
Well, a second-person point of view is action that is shot from the perspective of a character that is not the protagonist, right?
Sure.
So a second-person Skyrim would be you playing as Lydia watching the Dragonborn do everything.
Ugh.
Unless, but you could make like,
hold on, I get it. Hold on. She follows you around,
right?
But this would be a second camera. This would be a second person camera perspective.
Yeah.
You don't control Lydia. She follows you around. You control the Dragonborn,
but you see through Lydia's
eyes. But you only see your actions through Lydia's eyes. So you don't control the camera.
Yeah.
And you have to try and make everything work by this other person's.
Okay, hold on. Aren't tactics games all second person at that point?
Are they? Is isometric? Well, not necessarily, because we're talking about isometric. So that's just a third person camera from a different angle, right?
We've had this conversation before. Like, what makes a second person?
Unless you assume that that you, the player, is a character, then it would be second person. Right?
Well, you're not looking at it through the events of someone else. Go ahead.
But if I'm playing Fire Emblem, right? Sure. Let's say that puts me in the position of being the commander, right? So then the people on the that would be a second person point of view, because my point of view is me watching the action on screen that I am directing as a commander.
But if you're as a commander, then actually you're just directing action and you're playing as from a first person perspective. And the isometric camera is basically you looking down. I'm playing from a
first person's perspective, but I'm seeing the game from a second person perspective because I'm seeing it through my point of view.
Well, but wouldn't you need to actually be seeing that through another character that's already there? Or are you implying a character with the commander? Is that what you're trying to get at?
I'm implying that I am a character.
Yeah, I don't know. Let's not get too philosophically deep into games here.
Free will doesn't exist.
Oh no! Okay, next thing up. Gran Turismo 7 got a dedicated state of play and brought with it a look at returning features such as the license center, the cafe that's new, that brings with it activities to complete for new cars, a history timeline for cars so car heads can learn more about their favorite manufacturers' roots, dynamic replays, a look at the world map, and ton more. It's 30 minutes. If you are a big Gran Turismo fan or just interested in looking at a new racer, go check out the gameplay, see if it's kicking for you. Ahead of the game's March 4th release. So one thing that I thought was interesting here is that messaging around ray tracing wasn't really concise, but they brought it up. And if y'all remember, there was a point about maybe a year ago where somebody was talking about the ray tracing would only be used for replays, photo mode, and 3D stages. And I've seen nothing that really shows that differently, but I've seen people reporting that this is now going to have a ray tracing mode. I don't think that's the case, and I think that if that really was the case, they would have went about trying to show real-time gameplay with it on there. But it still might come, or it might be something they add at a later date at some point. We'll definitely see. But there's that. The second game that got a big reveal event the day after is Ghostwire Tokyo. We got to look at our protagonist, Akito, and what appears to be the antagonist, Hanya, along with a look at the enemies we can expect, sections of the open world Tokyo that players can traverse, and a look at combat and how it can shift from using the power of your hands to manipulate the elements. Basically, fancy Naruto bending. But also more stealthy approaches like a bow and arrow as players move their way through Tokyo, cleansing torii gates to push back the fog that started this all. Ghostwire releases on March 24th, showing that there really is a packed start of the year for Sony's exclusive output, even if this one may be a timed exclusive. Looks like both of you guys didn't have much to say on that. Ghostwire not tickling your fancy at all, Chris?
This game does not look good.
Well, gotcha. And I know how you are with racing stuff, and we already talked about Gran Turismo, and I was surprised you were watching it. That's when I heard you here, I was like, Chris is watching Gran Turismo 7?
I mean, I care about it. Like, it's definitely a game like I could see myself downloading. but
if you didn't have to pay for it.
Correct. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'll be buying it. So there you go. I guess you'll have that opportunity. Yeah.
Racing games, I don't know. It's hard for me to get invested in a racer. And then one that I don't mean this in a pejorative sense, but I do mean it. I especially a game as pretentious as Gran Turismo seems far too much.
Wrapped in pretension. I mean, that's kind of what the series is known for. I'm not going to act like it's not.
That showcase I watched was the single most pretentious thing I've ever seen for a bunch of vroom vrooms and beep beeps. Like I didn't understand.
Some of that, right? Pretension's weird because I agree that it's pretentious, and I still think everything they showed looked really amazing, and I like a lot of what they're talking about. And I mean, even outside of visually, right? Like I like a lot of the stuff that they're talking about, like simulating cloud positions and how that impacts the dynamic weather system. But sick, that is all wrapped in pretension. It is. But how pretentious it is versus how much you care really depends on how much you're into what they're talking about in this particular sense. So for people who like racers but really don't care that much about all this very deep simulation stuff, it kind of just feels like, dude, you're just, the old South Park, you're sniffing your own farts. But for the people that do care, like for the people who like get super into Team Asobo's Flight Simulator, right? Like there are people that look at Flight Simulator like, okay, this is stupid. And then there's people like, bro, can you believe? Look, they simulated the clouds right here and I can fly down. And there's people that care way more about that stuff. And though I will say marketing for Flight Simulator still felt far less pretentious than current marketing for Gran Turismo, because it is kind of the Gran Turismo thing. And I don't think it's a bad thing, but it could be seen as one.
It's way easier to sell Flight Simulator when you're like, hey, you want to fly plane and look at your house?
That's true. Maybe Gran Turismo would do a lot better if it's like, hey, do you want to drive a car realistically to your house?
Right, exactly. Did you like the concept of the crew too, but not the game? Here you go. It's Gran Turismo.
Gran Turismo across America.
So do you think we'll ever get a Gran Turismo Horizon?
I don't. I don't think
they'll sully the name.
It depends, but I think Sony has enough respect for Gran Turismo and how big of a franchise it's been for them, and I think that they have enough respect currently still for the creator that, and knowing that that's not the creator's style, I don't think that they would go that far off. I think the most that you were ever going to see that kind of feel out, but still have the Gran Turismo name, was Gran Turismo Sport.
Okay. Fair.
But it would be interesting. People have been saying that for years, right? Well, now that Sony's just going to do a Gran Turismo Horizon where it's Gran Turismo and all the name and stuff. But here's the real thing. Does Forza Horizon really feel like Forza at all? It doesn't. It's just a name. And I get it. But if you play Forza Motorsport and then you play Forza Horizon, there's no through line between them to me at all. They're very different games, and the tone is way different. Forza Motorsport's very serious, and then Forza Horizon is this stupid, like, oh, look, we're friends and riding through Mexico. Ooh! And honestly, hey, that tone, I hate. I cannot. Part of the reason I quit playing Forza Horizon 5 is because I could not stand the way everyone talks to each other and acts. I'm like, I would just rather everyone shut up and let me race while not saying a word than hear another bit of this. But
hey, what's up, racer?
Like, oh man, you jumped a car. Oh yeah, I jumped a car. Yes, I've played Need for Speed for years of my life, and no one was ever like, oh, we caught that on camera. You're so cool. I don't know, man. I just don't care. I didn't like it. I didn't like that in Skate either, but at least it made more sense in Skate, because that's how skateboarders actually talk to each other. If you have a skateboarder who's carrying around a camera and looking at you and they're like, dude, you just nailed that sick kickflip, that seems to make way more sense than like, you jumped a car. I don't know.
Get out.
Even then, I don't like either of them. So marketing is a pain. Well, what do you think, Saul? We're gonna get Gran Turismo Horizon?
Nope.
It won't be called that anyway, to be fair, but
of course it wouldn't. You don't have to specify that.
Gran Turismo Vertical.
Motorstorm Horizon. That might happen.
Yeah, that's probably one of their live service games.
We'll definitely see. All right, next thing up, Sony's financial results for the third quarter have been announced, and this is mostly numbers, so for those of you who are interested, looks like 3.9 million PS5s were purchased by retailers and 200,000 PS4s. These numbers push PS5 to 17.3 million units shipped and PS4 up to 116.9 million units. I put K, but nope, that's wrong. Anyway, sales were down around 8% year over year, in part due to hardware production issues, but operating income grew by 12.1 billion, in part thanks to PS5's disc-based version already becoming profitable for its hardware sales. As a result of continued chip shortages, Sony have lowered their forecasted PS5 sales to 11.5 million compared to their original prediction of 14.8 million for the full fiscal year that ends in March. So all that to say is it's probably going to get harder to get a PlayStation 5. The only upside is that more people have them, so maybe less people will be going for them, but I don't anticipate that to really happen. I think that this is going to be an issue for a long while still, sadly.
Yeah, I think at least till next year.
Yeah, well, or maybe if we get really lucky, like Q4 2022, things start looking up, but seems unlikely. We'll find out. Now we get into the meat of all this, where the week got real interesting. Sony announced the acquisition of Bungie for $3.6 billion. Right off of the back of... that's an interesting thing. We'll save that for a second. So let's continue. It's come to light that 1.2 billion of that deal is going toward retention incentives to keep talent from the studio, or keep talent from at the studio from leaving. In a surprise, Sony and Bungie have clearly stated and communicated that Bungie will retain its autonomy. It will still self-publish their titles, and that their titles will continue to remain multi-platform. This clarification in the wake of the ambiguity surrounding Activision Blizzard's titles, and if any will remain multi-platform, is welcome, but surprising considering how much of it breaks from Sony's usual mold. We can go ahead and read the next news piece as part of this, or we can just kind of look at this in and of itself.
Just have a big conversation. I think that makes sense.
I'll go ahead and read the rest then. So during their quarterly conference call, we also got clarification on why Bungie was sought after. And the importance was not only in the IP of Destiny and their new IP, but rather to incorporate the technologies and expertise that Bungie has developed that gives it a unique edge in the live service game space. Sony say that they intend to utilize this talent to develop games within PlayStation Studios as they seek to expand into the games as a service arena. As part of this collaboration between Bungie and PlayStation Studios, Sony intend to launch over 10 live service games by the fiscal year ending in March 2026. So that's 10 games in roughly 4 years. Just to throw that out there. Sony Sony added that they view the deployment of IP on multiple platforms as a major opportunity for growth, as recent PlayStation PC releases have shown with great success, and aim to acquire new users and increase engagement with their products on platforms other than just PlayStation consoles to expand the ecosystem of Sony's overall gaming business. So, looking at all this,
yes,
I think the first thing I want to talk about, and I know me and you have kind of had this, right? Is this overarching, for people that don't want to dig any deeper than the surface level, this overarching feel that's happening throughout the gaming sphere bubble of all the people that just scream into the void, that this Bungie purchase is a direct result of Activision Blizzard.
No.
And I just think that there's a lot of details if you actually dig into the thing where Jim Ryan talks about this has been in the works for 5 to 6 months, building towards this. And this is in no way, shape, or form a direct response that happened because of Activision Blizzard.
This is probably a direct response to Bethesda, if anything. These things take
potentially,
time.
Yes.
Yeah, they take time. This is not like a week did not pass and think, I'm going to acquire this whole company. Here's the cash.
For someone who thought that Sony went to... that's why I think it's so crazy. For someone who thought Sony went to Bungie and made a deal and were able to announce that deal in 2 weeks, you're out of your mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's just not going to happen.
The email process probably just starting the deal took 2 weeks.
Probably. But that's the kind of main thing I think is going on here, is that I think it needs to be clear to everyone that this is not a response. The one thing that I think Chris argued, and it is fair that you could look at it this way, the Activision Blizzard deal might have pushed Sony into terms while they were still working that they originally weren't going to worry, like they were trying to try and fight through, because they felt a need to move as they see consolidation starting to happen at a bigger rate.
Yeah.
And that feeling of maybe we need to go ahead and agree to something that we may not have, or agree to a price that we may not have, just so we can get this while we can still get them. That's a possibility, but that's one of those things that I don't think we'll ever know. So.
No. I have a potentially hot, but I think it's kind of a cool take. This is a response to Arcane and Castlevania. It's not a response to anything Microsoft did.
Hold on.
Yeah.
To Arcane and Castlevania.
The TV shows.
So you're talking specifically about the Netflix series. That's what I thought.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Oh, so that Sony can then have the rights to make a Destiny TV show.
A Destiny anime, a Destiny movie.
Well, I don't think you're wrong at all for a number of reasons. One of the things that's come out after this is that Bungie recently hired Riot Studios animation director.
And I've been saying forever that, not forever, but since this happened, that I hope they don't do a live action movie with like Lance Reddick playing Zavala as it would be, that would just be cartoonish. I don't need to see a bunch of blue people like humans painted that way. I would rather see it as an anime or whatever. So seeing that, I was like, hell yeah.
This is actually hilarious because it used to be a insult, right? Of people saying, "Oh, Sony doesn't make games; they just make movies. They're not even real games." Well, now it's like Sony doesn't make games; they make movies. They make TV shows.
Yeah. So one of the things that people were saying, and one of the things that Bungie was saying, is that there is this idea of pushing Destiny and their IPs past games media only. They wanted it to be, multimedia kind of situation. And I think that, Chris, I don't think that your take is that hot. I think if anybody really thinks of that, I think if you look at the fact that one of the first things that came out is that Bungie has intentions to push Destiny and their new IP potentially outside of outside of just gaming, on top of the fact that Arcane was one of the highest viewed and highest rated shows of last year. And Sony's push for wanting PlayStation Productions to be more involved. It's a easy path to follow, to be like, to see Sony going, Bungie has a bunch of technology that we could use to try and get our own moves going for games as a service that we haven't really had any real success in. We just get Bungie, who are still at least currently something that we can get, potentially help us expand to other platforms as we looked. And that's going to be one of the biggest conversations to have here, is that it looks like Sony wanted to push off of PlayStation it's happening a lot quicker than we might have thought. But yeah, I don't think that there's any reason not to look at this and think that Sony thought Destiny is a big IP with a lot of people that are built-in audience, and we could do an animated series and put it on. Sony have a deal with Netflix right now. There's no reason that they wouldn't go to Netflix and go, "Hey, Netflix, do you want an exclusive show?" Or exclusive shows. They've done this before, but doesn't mean they'll do it again. Or part of PlayStation Spartacus is that you can get their shows through that. I doubt that that's what they do, because
I think that devalues it. Powers.
What was that show called? Powers. Yeah, it was something very simple name-wise. It did not do well as a PS Plus exclusive show.
No. I think putting a TV show on PS Plus immediately makes me less interested in the TV show. Even if you put Breaking Bad on PS Plus and it was like, you have to have PlayStation Plus to watch every episode of Breaking Bad, I'd be like, that show must suck. Right? Like, because you're giving it to me for basically free, because I need this anyway, regardless of what you're doing. I just think it devalues it. I think that was the biggest issue with Powers, is it looked cheap, and then it's on PS Plus, and you're like, I think I'm going to watch Invincible or something,
See, the thing that happened with PS Plus, and I kind of understand it, and clearly it's worked for their operating income because they make a lot of money off of PS Plus and their subscriptions. I think the problem with PS Plus, going from being billed as this completely optional thing that gave you extra features and extra content, is that the moment you make it required for online play, and people are pretty much going to be getting it because of that anyway, everything else you do now feels like, people say, oh, those are my free PS Plus games. You know why that became so obvious is that everybody looks at free PS Plus as the means for, oh, okay, so I pay for PS Plus to play online, and then you give me these games. I think it was viewed a lot differently. Whenever I had PS Plus right after it came out, it was nice to be like, oh crap, I'm getting Tomb Raider 2013 like 6 or 7 months after it came out, just because I paid for this service. And it wasn't a free game, it was my PS Plus game, because that's what you paid for PS Plus for, or that was one of the features. And you're right, I think if you would have tried billing powers at that point, it might have worked better, because people would be like, okay, it's like it's part of this optional thing. But the moment you make something like that necessary, no matter what you loop into it, people go, well, it's just like a free added thing and can't be that good, because they're adding it on top of the value of me just being able to play online. What's more interesting about that is that they've been able to brainwash the majority of consumers to think that it's completely 100% normal and okay that you just have to pay to play online, unfortunately.
That's the new.
Yeah, it's a very weird thing to think about. Definitely, when one of the coolest things about PlayStation or PC gaming is that you just turn it on and you're like, oh yeah, I don't have to do anything. I just play the game. You know how crazy it is that Xbox Live was free on PC and not on the system? I would be furious if I was an Xbox gamer. And as soon as they announced, like, hey, we're going to have Xbox Live and all these Xbox games available on PC. And you're like, so if I buy Halo 4 through you guys, I have to, on your system, I have to pay for it. But if I buy it on PC, I don't, which I know Halo 4 is not on PC. But point being, if I buy Gears 5 on Xbox, I've got to pay to play it online. But if I buy it on PC, I don't. And both of them are owned by Microsoft? Okay, great, thanks.
It's a bad look, at the very least.
It is. I mean, I'm really surprised that they haven't just killed gold at this point. I'm being dead honest.
Yeah, I don't know why they wouldn't do that.
What's more crazy is not only did they not kill gold, at one point they tried to double the...
Hey man, when everybody plays, we all win. Don't you know that?
Man, the fact that at that point, Xbox, who was being seen as like the consumer-friendly company, was like, hey, we're going to double the price. It goes to show you that no matter what the company is doing, if they think they have an opportunity to basically just pull one over on their customer base, they absolutely will.
Yeah, I don't know. I like Phil
What's
Spencer,
the old saying? Better to ask for forgiveness than ask for permission.
Yeah. I just think Phil Spencer is a BS artist, and it's fine. That's his job. But I just can't stand it. It's so annoying.
I think that all people in his position, like Jim Ryan included, are just BS artists.
Well, sure, but
when you're Phil Spencer and you try and do this thing, it's a problem of he's very friendly feeling, right? And he tries to come off as like the gamer's game head and all that. But then these moves still happen. It really does create this issue of where you're like, I started to trust you, Phil. Well, and you did this, and not that that's not his job, like you said, but it kind of creates this weird thing where when Jim Ryan's a douche, but then does something like this, you're like, well, that's in line with Jim Ryan or whatever. So you're like, whatever, it's like he's being a corporate person.
I think everything Phil kind of says, like you look at one thing, you're like, that doesn't make any sense. Like he was talking about when Activision happened, he was like, oh, we don't see Sony as competition. We're not trying to kill Sony. Our competition is Google and Apple. We want to prop Sony up. And I'm like, okay, then why can't I play Elder Scrolls 6 on my PlayStation 5? Like, don't stop lying. Like, if you weren't worried about Sony, you'd let me play Elder Scrolls 6 on my PS5. You're full of it. Just say it.
I agree. Yeah.
Like I've always said, I would vote for the president who's like, I'm going to war because I feel like it. I'd be like, all right, I'll vote for him. He's at least being honest. Like, you know what I mean? It's the same thing.
I mean, that's true. That's better than we're going to war because of weapons of mass destruction. Where are they at? We don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah. You're right. I mean, no matter what, there is something about the person who just feels like they're doing what they're doing and coming out with it. So anyway, kind of pulling back into the conversation here and looking at what's going on here. I'm genuinely... And the first time I read it, I thought that this is exactly what they meant, but they came out and further clarified. I'm genuinely surprised that Sony made this acquisition, and as part of what Bungie wanted and potentially what Sony wanted, everything's still multi-platform, and everything moving forward will still be multi-platform. That is the most un-Sony thing that has happened so far. You can, because it implies day one multi-platform. You can look and go, well, Sony's been putting their games on PC, but not day one.
No.
We haven't seen that, not even close to day one. Right?
Yeah.
Sony, you can say Sony put MLB on Xbox and now Switch, but that their hand was forced.
Right.
You know? They benefit from it, but their hand was forced. This
I
seems
don't
to be
know.
the first time that Sony is making the decision to day one do this, and off the back of a $3.6 billion. This isn't even something they already owned and that they're doing this on. This is, we're going to buy it knowing that part of us buying it is multi-platform. Go ahead.
Sorry. No, I have two theories here. One of them was like more of a rumor that I heard where Microsoft was sniffing around Bungie for like $5 billion, and this is what got it done. That's one of the things I read. I don't know how true that is.
So just so I'm clear here, you're saying that Microsoft was sniffing around for $5 billion, but probably with the thing that we will lock your content down to ours.
Exactly, yeah.
And
or even we
Bungie
own
was
your content
more willing.
Again.
Yeah,
right.
And then Bungie was more willing to go with a lesser amount from Sony. Now, this, of course, all rumor, but that's the thought process behind the rumor, right?
Yeah, because even Jeff Grubb, I think last year was saying that Microsoft was trying to buy them back. So it makes complete sense that they were rebuffing that, and the price was going up, and then they went to Sony, and Sony was like, "Yeah, we'll let you have it. That's fine." Just because all this is, if you read it, it's just a $3.6 billion consulting fee. That's all this is.
You still own everything at the end. But you're right. The value of the purchase outside of the inherent value of Bungie and their own operating income and what they get, which you do get here.
Yeah, and
but you don't remake that. Yeah, you don't. Yeah, and that's true. But you don't make that back quickly. The real value of the immediate purchase comes from what Bungie can teach other studios, which clearly they need, though, right? Because what's Destruction All Stars?
Yeah,
Destruction All Stars is a perfect example of the fact that Sony does not know. And the developer that they went to do not know or really truly understand how to make a game that's sticky and really keeps the community around. Mm-hmm. And Microsoft have had a few great chances. Like Microsoft has Halo Infinite going right now, and as annoying as all the bugs and server issues are, it's still successful. Then you have Sea of Thieves, which is also pretty successful and part of Game Pass, and it's got the idea behind a game as a service down. Keep updating it. And for free for anybody who does own it, and they just keep going, but there's monetization built in within that. Sony have not nailed that down.
No.
They just haven't. Sony were early to try that idea with things like Killstrain, but it didn't really work, and then they just completely abandoned it. And then now they're in the position where they understand that abandoning it was the wrong thing because it's the big new thing in the industry. So there's that. But also, in looking at this, what do you think Sony means, and what do you think it means for Sony as a company, as far as us consumers look at, with Sony talking about wanting to increase engagement and acquire new users outside of PlayStation? That sounds like, in light with this Bungie thing, that there's going to be a real push at trying to get things out day one from within PlayStation Studios that are on more than just PlayStation and can benefit from more than just PlayStation. Does that sound like what you're kind of hearing here?
Yeah, but I think if you're looking at it, I think that the way this reads, because it has to do with Bungie really, is that our live service games will be on at least PC and PS5 day one. But I don't see why they wouldn't put them on Xbox too. Why wouldn't you take that money? Take the 30% or the 70% or whatever it is, and the microtransactions off Microsoft. Why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah, take the 70% of the overall profit of the game on another platform. I guess the thing is that I see that too, because at this point, if you're going to let Bungie, who by all means is a Sony thing now, if you're going to let Bungie release their thing on Xbox still, why not just do that with your live service game? You get a bigger player base, you get a higher chance of monetization working out, and across the board, you get people who might be more likely, even though probably not, to potentially want to come over into the Sony fold because they like what Sony's doing. So you have a small chance of getting a hardware buy out of it and then potentially more money out of it moving forward. But if nothing else, you get the idea of there's more hands in the pot right now, so there's more money in the pot.
Well,
Go ahead.
not to mention like some of the games that may not be as big. Like let's say Twisted Metal is a live service game. So they go, okay, Twisted Metal is on everything because we want as many people as possible to pick it up. But Last of Us Factions is PlayStation 5 exclusive. You know what I mean? Stuff like that where they could try and capture a couple extra people. Like let's say they do like I don't know, Uncharted Fight for Fortune 2. And that's on everything. Yeah. And that's on everything because that's a significantly more niche audience. But like, oh, we're doing a Uncharted Battle Royale. It's only on PlayStation 5. Like,
or PS5 PC.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, exactly. Like looking at stuff like, okay, we don't need to capture a big audience, a bigger audience here because we have a big audience, but we might need to do this on our competitive ping pong game. You know what I mean?
Sure. Well, I think what kind of buys into this, right, is that part of the same investment call, Sony said that they want to more than double their first party income, their first party profit, whatever you want to call it, across. I mean, really, the thing is, Sony's first party is already incredibly profitable for a first party. You know, they're to be fair, Nintendo is incredibly profitable from a first party standpoint. But if Sony's wanting to do that across platforms they've had good success at growing their original IP to where it seems like most of their games sell at least 10 million copies, which is awesome because that used to not be the case. But if you're going to want to double that, the only way I see that happening is if you have first party games hitting multiple platforms day one so they can make more money in that regard. And it also sounds like monetization is part of that because they don't really have a first party studio that has a monetization thing built in. It's all the game's built, we sell the game that's done. You know, you might get the occasional like when Naughty Dog did all the Last of Us what were they, like hats and stuff that were like they were even on PS3 they were there, but for the most part, like Uncharted 4 had monetization as well, but it doesn't live long.
Let's not forget about multiplayer passes.
Boy, I'm so glad we're past that point. But yeah, so it's not like they haven't messed with monetization before, but not in the same sense as anyone else. So that's kind of happening there. But either way, Saul, what are your thoughts on pretty much all this?
Man, that's a broad question.
It is really a broad question, but it's such a weird thing to think about. There's something we want to talk about. I think right now, let's kind of, for the most part, leave the idea of what the 10 live service games are. I kind of think that we'll wrap this conversation up by doing a few little pitches of our own idea of what we think those might be.
I have one of those for sure.
But yeah, before we get into that.
Yeah, I mean, I've said this before that I think live service games are a good idea when they work right. They can be very profitable. They can be very fun for the consumer. And they can inspire player bases that are very dedicated to them. And you know, I'm not one of the people that will say that Sony has to make a first-person game because now Microsoft has Call of Duty. I think that's kind of a dumb thought process.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if they're going to do this anyways, then I'm going to cheer them on because this is where that little threshold gets made up. So I'm all for it. And like our main topic or our side topic or our creative topic, I have a pitch of my own that is like a dream. It's never going to happen, but I think it'd be really cool. So,
well, I mean, Chris, do you have anything else you want to talk about specifically in regards to Bungie and the situation, or do you want to go ahead and start moving into the live service aspect? Because I saw a lot of people, and I'm not going to say I don't understand it, but I saw a lot of people get up in arms this week over this remark about Sony doing not only games as a service games, but 10 in the next 4 years.
Yeah, I don't think it's that big a deal, but I do have one thing about Bungie that I'm curious what you guys think on.
Sure.
Do you think Bungie would prickle at the idea of Sony going to them and be like, listen, you're not required to do anything, but we would like to offer you a contract, kind of like how they went to Deviation or Firewalk and we're like, we're going to pay for you to do an exclusive. Do you think they would have a problem with that? Like, hey, like I've been talking about forever. Hey, we want to bring back Resistance, and we'd love for it to be a Bungie product. We'd like to still contract you and pay you to do it, kind of like if Microsoft, like the rumor with Microsoft and Kojima, you know what I mean? Do you think they would have an issue with that? And do you think that that would turn this into a lie? Right?
I don't think they would have an issue with it from a yes or no standpoint. I think they would maybe have an issue with it of just a size of their team versus what Destiny is standpoint. They would definitely have to hire on more people.
Well, that's part of what they said. That's what they said this whole thing was about, is that they're going to be able to hire a lot more people. And they have $2.4 billion to spend on employees and yachts. So,
yeah. So I could definitely see it as long as they would focus on hiring and getting their team ready and up and running, because as we know, but I've said it a million times before, Bungie, it makes some of the best feeling first-person shooters there's ever been.
Right.
So having a Resistance crafted by Bungie is the weirdest statement I think I could ever say out loud, but it's actually one of those weird ones that's like, this could actually kind of maybe happen.
So I think the weird part of this, right, is and I know you're kind of coming at this from a weird angle, but Sony completely owning Bungie cannot necessarily go to them and say, hey, we're going to contract you and pay you this way. They can run incentives, right? They can say, listen, we're coming to you and we'll invest an extra $1.2 billion, just like they just did, right? Or we'll do a $500,000 incentive that if you guys are willing to make an exclusive for us, then you'll do this. Because they already own them. They're not going to contract out someone they own to make something, because that's just not how that works. But you could, so you would do that. But you could take the idea, though. Take the idea of, we're going to give you guys an extra bit of money and incentivize your employees to do this idea when you've already expressed that y'all want to remain open platform. Like, right, Bungie's statement was, we want a single Bungie community, and we want Bungie's games to be where our community is, which is whatever platform that people play our games. And that is the most indicative of, we want our games henceforward to always be everywhere so that we have a singular community. And I think to that degree, I think Bungie would probably, at least still currently, right, in the next few years, while this mindset is what's at the studio, I think the studio would say no right now, even if they were given extra incentive in terms of Sony being like, we're going to put a pool of $1 million here. If you guys make this game, you'll get extra funding. And if the game does certain things, or even across the board, we would just love to have a game made, and maybe they get to choose, right? Maybe it's not Resistance. Maybe it's, hey, we want to come out with our own exclusive first party game, and you can either make a new IP or look at the IP that we have. Yeah. But it has to be exclusive. I still think right now Bungie, with the mindset of the people behind it, would probably look at that and go, no thank you, we appreciate the offer, but no thank you. But one thing we didn't really talk about here is, and people have been talking about this all week, so whether or not you've heard this or seen this, but I've seen some people be like, why Bungie, and then why this, and what expertise are they talking about? But it's also not expertise, right? One of the other layers of this, and it's in the thing, is they're going to incorporate technologies and expertise. So one of the things that Chris and I were talking about is that one of the things I love the most about Destiny that other games just do not have is that while you are loading to other areas and while you're in loading screens, you can completely use your inventory system. You can look at the quest system. You can use menus while the game is loading things in the background. And as far as we can tell, Bungie has a patent on that.
Do they really?
Yes. That's what I understand. So when you look at that is a very valuable piece of tech that, like, one of the things that annoys me the most about Halo Infinite is when you start to try matchmake.
Oh, you can't change anything.
And you hit matchmake, and then you try and go look at the battle pass, and you're like, oh, that pulled me out of matchmaking. It's annoying. It's unnecessary. And I think it goes to make the experience lesser. I think Sony stands to gain a lot from not just the expertise of how do you make a sticky game where people want this, but also to where Sony can say every one of our first party live service games has menu systems that can be acted whatever went through while it's loading. That's a huge boon.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the technology. There's apparently some other technologies in the way that they stream stuff out within their worlds. Hell, even this is also just game design, and I don't know if there's patents that would go along with this, because that kind of patent side of things is always weird. But a good example of, again, something that I don't like about Halo Infinite is that you have these challenges, but once you're in a game, you can't see them.
Yeah.
And you don't know how far you are into them. But on Destiny, if I'm doing a bounty, which is the same as a challenge, and I'm like, how far into this challenge or how far into this bounty am I? Hit the menu, go over and look and go, oh, that's there. I love that. I think that that's something that games like Halo and all that stuff need. It's very annoying to not be able to see what you're supposed to be working toward. I think that one's just game design, because if I'm not mistaken, all of Sea of Thieves is just because it's an open world. All of Sea of Thieves, you can just look at what you're supposed to be doing,
right,
and you can see, and you can go into the menu
at
any given time. I think Halo is because it's sectioned off into multiplayer maps that their menu system is not built up to handle you being able to do some of these things.
Right.
But those are little things that Sony probably needs, right? Maybe no one in the Halo room thought people would want to be able to see their challenges while they're playing the game. That might genuinely be the only reason it's not in the game.
Yeah.
So it's good to have somebody who goes, this is what players like. This is something players want to feel like the game is grinding against them as least as possible. So if you can make it to where they're having fun and can do what they want, and the frustration isn't coming from the game, but like maybe last night when we were playing Destiny, the frustration is coming from the people in the game. That's a very different conversation, because people are still not blaming the game for this issue. They're just blaming the group they're with at the time or whatever. So I think that's really important thing. But I guess if that's it, I think Saul, go ahead and start off. I want to hear your dream pitch for a live service game.
SOCOM 2024.
2024?
2024.
So is that like the year that the game is taking place in, or the year of release?
Either or.
Okay.
It could be. I want it to be modern. I don't want it to be futuristic. I don't want it to be.
When you first said, I thought you said 2042, and I was like, is this Battlefield?
No.
Like,
I want it to be fairly modern. I want it to be fairly tactical, like SOCOM is.
Sure.
Give it a 12-hour campaign, stealth based. The kind of typical SOCOM stuff. Have a group you can command. Then you can have multiplayer, 6v6, objective or deathmatch. But then this is where you get in like the big multiplayer side of things. So that could obviously be a thing. But I would think SOCOM being able to swap third or first person, being a first for the series. Because I don't think there's ever been a SOCOM game you can go first person, right? I don't think there is.
So.
Hold on.
Maybe the
PSP one.
SOCOM. Like well, because I know that you could use those move
one that
controllers.
Kept alive?
Yeah, the one that came out when the PSN was down, so it kind of killed the whole franchise.
That was SOCOM 4.
Yeah, so SOCOM 4. Because I know you could use the move controllers, so I feel like that would have had to have been in first person, at least a little bit.
I'm not sure, but
anyways, it's going to be, you could toggle first or third person. And I feel like having essentially like what a battle royale is in a SOCOM style environment of like, almost like PUBG, but way more refined than PUBG is, way more in depth with the weapons that you can use, and having better maps and environments that you can be able to actually sneak around in and stuff like that would be really cool. But the coup de grace for that game could be the Tarkov style gameplay.
Yes.
Of a third to first person Tarkov game. You get launched into a map and you have a silenced pistol and it's stealth based, and you go around and you are taking out enemies and other players. Actually, Tarkov is weird. Tarkov does have bots in the game. Like there are bots in this multiplayer game that like story bots or whatever. But then you grab your loot, and then you have to get out via helicopter, via extraction zone. And if you don't make it, all the loot's gone. You lost it. And then in the menu, you get to pick what loot you take in. And then whatever you lose, if you take it in, you lost it. So you can lose all your inventory if you bring all your inventory. I think a SOCOM game would fit that extremely well.
So just in terms of looking at the idea, and this is a good question I have a couple of questions that kind of come as a result of that.
Okay.
So the first one that came to mind, and this is a genuine question that I'm just always curious about. Do you think, because you said a campaign, and you acted like in your version of this, is the campaign completely separate from multiplayer?
Yes, multiplayer's free to play campaign is $40 because it's going to be a 12-hour campaign.
So part of the reason I bring that up is, and this is a question for both of y'all, because I think y'all played a little bit more. I've been into them recently, just by nature of what's going on. Do you think games as a service games need to have, let me back up, kind of looking at examples, right? Call of Duty Warzone is a games as a service game, because the entire job is supporting that game indefinitely. And this is a conversation Chris and I had with like Sean earlier this week of what is the definition of a game as a service game. And Sean Juanillo was asking, like, could you look at Uncharted 4, a game that he is pretty sure had seasons? I don't remember if it did or not. Can you look at the idea of seasons being enough of an idea for games as a service? And I don't really think that that's the idea behind it, right? The idea of a game as a service is a game that's intended to go as long as the player base can let it go.
Yeah.
Whereas a game like Uncharted 4 and even a more standard Call of Duty, the idea is we're going to support this game with new and continued content for roughly 2 years, maybe, and then we're going to let it go for the next game. I don't consider those games as a service, but like Warzone and Apex and games that are developed in perpetuity and continue to have new content over and over and over again, that kind of looks like that. So Destiny, and where it kind of plays into this idea, I think makes sense because its story and its campaign and everything is built around this idea of you can do all of this within this greater games as a service field.
Yeah.
Because it's all connected and you can play with other people and it continues to be developed on. So I get where you're coming from, but I actually think a really interesting idea for a SOCOM game is to kind of destiny it up with the idea of SOCOM is that you have squads. And everybody in the single player SOCOM games, you had a squad and you could control different people, where to go and what to do. I think taking that idea of keeping it still extremely tactical, but having it to be where you build up your Navy SEALs fire team right there.
Yeah.
And you actually do the campaign with a group of people and you see these events unfold. And if it could be a little dynamic where if certain people do certain things, almost like the Hitman level of like, well, if you do this or you do that, it changes something slightly. That would be awesome to see go off, but you still have an overarching story that happens. That can't vary too much. Yeah. I think that would fit a little bit better into this games as a service idea, because the entire game, from the moment you boot it up, would be tied into this idea of we are games as a service. Everything you do in this game, you do with other people, and we'll continually add new stuff to this game. Every year, maybe they come out with a big expansion for it, kind of like Destiny
does,
it has
like
where
a
it's like,
campaign
here's
refresh.
A new campaign, and you're going through, and your characters
SOCOM, but like that.
Yeah, so you're basically you're being a career military person, and you're seeing that as you keep going. Like you're
ranking up in the military as a custom character or something.
Yeah, your view of the world
character.
and the lore is that your character is continuing to his career in military.
And then you can either view like all the Tarkov stuff as like training missions or just breakout missions of like you have to infiltrate.
Yeah. What's up, Chris? You wanted to ask something?
Well, you mentioned Destiny, and the more I think about it, why wouldn't you just do Destiny for SOCOM? You choose an operator, stealth, sniper, rogue, whatever. I know rogue is fantasy, but
that would be okay. Subclass, is that what you kind of?
I'm saying
just like class.
You build a soldier, you get his class, and then the whole game, rather than a single player experience, it's just missions. It's okay.
Well, that's what I mean.
You and your elite squad are
but
going
Destiny
on
still has a
to
story.
do this.
You know,
sure,
what I mean?
But I'm saying they tell it the same way I'm saying you would tell this.
Absolutely.
And I guess I should say is a campaign by what I mean is just a single player experience. It doesn't have to have like a 40-hour.
I agree in the sense of much like Destiny, the SOCOM game should be able to be done entirely on your own if you want to.
Yeah,
but it's still all online. So if you want to play with a group of up to 6 friends, and I see Destiny right now limits everything to 3.
Yeah,
I think SOCOM is the perfect example of like
4.
Yeah, let's go up. Let's either do 4 or 6 people for everything that you can do, because it adds difficulty because everybody has to be tactical in a unit.
Yeah. And I have actually, you could do that, and it could be co-op or not, but it's focused more on single player. And then you could have your Tarkov. I think that's where this game would really shine, is a stealth-based Tarkov-like experience of get in, get the best loot, and get out. Here's the thing I thought about that I think would be the coolest idea to me. Okay, so every PS5 controller, because this is a PS5 game, no PS4. This is a PS5 game. Every PS5 controller has a microphone. What if there's a user agreement when you play this game that you cannot mute the controller, and there's a hardcore mode version of Tarkov, right? Yes. Where you go in and every single person, and this is mainly I'm bringing up the mic on the controller because you can't get around it, but your headset in game is all based off location. And when you're in here talking with friends, you'll be real quiet, because if an enemy's over there, they can hear y'all. So they can hear you get close. So you have to actually execute like hand commands and stuff. Sure. And then if you think I'll just use Discord, well, that's not going to work, because if you're talking on your headset on Discord, I would assume the perfect world scenario that Discord wouldn't be allowed to be used with this game. So it'd block you from that. You'd have to use in-game chat. But you're going to be sneaky and say, I'm just going to use Discord on my phone and mute my microphone controller. You can't. So it's still going to hear you talk. So you can't get around it. So it's going to be true stealth based, like it's silencer, sniper rifles, and that's the thing. It's like you have a gear level. So like you go in, get the best gear and get out. And then you have like your KD and stuff that also levels you up. So you go through and want to use the gear.
So let me ask you, because I feel like you would want this to be like modern military, because I feel like the only way to do a Tarkov thing and have it make a ton of sense is in some kind of post-apocalypse.
It could be modern military, but it could also be like it could be modern militia, I should say. I don't want futuristic advanced warfare weapons, but it could say like this SOCOM could be like right after a new Great Depression that happened or something, and then the buildings are in ruin. There's grass everywhere, overrun. So there's areas that have incredible buildups of snow because snowplows couldn't get through, stuff like that. But it's still very much modern. I don't want to see a laser drone flying around. A DJ Hero or a DJI Hero 4 drone, though, flying around makes more sense.
It's just interesting because for me, you're describing what I hope Factions is.
And I mean, true.
Yeah, true. And that makes more. I agree that does make more sense in a post-apocalyptic. And right, a good example, and it's not entirely it, but a good example of what you're talking about is the Dark Zone in the Division. But the Division is post-apocalyptic. I mean, or you know what I mean? It's after a big thing kind of destroys
and it could be that way
status quo.
But the reason I say SOCOM is that SOCOM can be can't even speak. SOCOM can be brought back to great form in terms of true squad-based action. Which technically, yeah, you're right. Factions. It could be factions. Yeah. You could literally change the name around.
Because to me, it's. Go ahead. Because I'm listening to what you're saying, and I like the idea, but to me, it sounds like you literally just make Destiny, right? You do this thing of you're the U.S. Army soldier, you're in your squad, and your elite squad of Black Ops soldiers goes on this mission. So you have the tower, and the tower is just the briefing room, right? And Zavala is a general. Then you have whatever your M is, or your Q, and he makes your guns, and like you go. And you
could be like a medic and a scout.
Exactly. So you have a medic, you have a scout, you have a gunner, you have a demolitionist, and you guys all choose your classes, go in, and the strikes are just individual missions. And then you have a campaign that you get through so that you can have your expansions. And then you have you literally SOCOM works as just Destiny. Everything.
Yeah, and then Destiny's just SOCOM with space magic. I've always thought that. Exactly. To the point that they actually call your groups of people a fire team.
Yeah, and I think then the Tarkov aspect just removes most of that because you don't want I think a medic in a Tarkov aspect will be weird.
So this is the other question, right? One of the other questions I had is it's kind of mixed into two questions, but it's this idea of at what point do you reuse IP but change things about the IP to the point where it's unrecognizable?
Right.
Versus, would this just make more sense for a game that's everything you described, but not with the SOCOM name? Therefore, it doesn't carry the SOCOM expectation or baggage. And the reason I ask this is because realistically, I agree with Chris. I don't know how you make SOCOM in the exact way that you just described, even though I think what you described sounds cool. I don't see how it pictures into SOCOM from what I know it as. And I wasn't even a huge SOCOM fan.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing is like up until post-apocalyptic got brought up, my thought process is like 4 teams of 4.
Sure.
16 people are being dropped into this war zone area. And it's very much like when you think about Warzone, like Call of Duty, is that it is like a desolated little town. It's in the middle of a war zone.
And that's what I was thinking too, is this idea of like, you don't want to make it doesn't have to be a post-apocalyptic. You don't really have to do anything other than be like, we're dropping you into the middle of a war-torn Iraq. We're putting you in the middle of war-torn.
Or it could just be some kind of future war that's currently taking place in America.
You could make a fictional area. And say,
that's what I brought up first until we talked about post-apocalyptic. Yeah. Then I was like, then you could do that.
Yeah, and I could see that, and I think that would work. And I love your idea, and I would have wanted that at first when you you were telling, I was like, I don't really see where the squad based thing's coming in here. And the big thing about SOCOM is squad working out. And I love like where you added this idea of like
you can't use your microphone when you're close to enemies. So you have to use hand signals.
That's a gamer's game dream across the board. That's a core gamer thing. I don't really think that would be made, as sad as that is. I love the idea. I just don't think anybody would have the balls to force it.
But that's why that's hardcore mode.
Yeah.
You don't play hardcore mode unless you want to play it. Like you'd play hardcore mode just to try it out a couple times.
Yeah.
And then it's going to have its own dedicated user base, like ranked in Rainbow Six Siege.
Yeah. See, I love that idea because I love the idea of like, okay, you need to be quiet. Hot mics I love the hot mic aspect of Phasmophobia.
Yeah.
It's super good. I love it. I love not being able to clearly communicate with people unless they're close. And then you have to rely on comms. And then you can have it where opposing teams could destroy your comms. So if you get away from people, you literally can't. Or you could have it where they have someone who can listen in on your comms.
That could be a secondary base.
And people can literally listen to what you're doing because they're hacked into your comms.
You can have like not only that, but you can have like a comm tower in this game too, like where it's the map split among 4 sections. And if somebody infiltrates your area and destroys your comm tower,
you can only rely on
you just hear
proximity chat.
You can't hear on any chat. You're muted entirely. Your whole group's muted.
Oh, I could see. I still think it would make sense to have it to where when you're directly beside the person, you can hear them.
Directly beside the person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Proximity in the sense of like Phasmophobia does it to where you start getting a little more behind them and they get quieter until you suddenly just can't hear them at all.
Okay, that could work. Yeah. But
I love
proximity chat would be turned up.
If they had balls, they would make it so that the louder I am, the further the distances you can hear me. So if I'm just in my house screaming, he's over there, like you can hear me. But if I'm whispering, you can't.
In the game,
Nathaniel would fail at that game every year.
But see, that's my thought process of like us playing, and we're like, okay, we got to go right here. Come on. And then and then you could say like, hey, shh. And then you hear somebody like in the game 100 feet away, and you hear it's like, somebody's over there talking or hear it barely. And then like they could hear you say that. And then you're like, hey, calm quiet.
Good example. Sea of Thieves. When you start being able to very quietly hear other people and you're like, what's going on? And then the closer they get, the more you can hear them. You're like, okay. See, I love that. I love the idea of too being able to where when you communicate in person, even if it has to be that you're whispering because you're around people, then you have this added element of okay, hey, we need to be quiet. But if we don't want anybody to hear us, you can also do that thing where the closer you are to people, you don't even want to risk doing that. So while you can communicate more involved by whispering and chatting, you can also forego that completely in the game, have it to where you can be like,
well, yeah, you can literally have like hold down the D-pad and you have hand signals of like go this way.
Yeah,
hold.
That would be amazing.
Or if you want to get really cool about it, use your rifle mounted flashlight of like flash, like stop, flash, go. Like you could. I'm telling you, this could be a sick game.
Yeah. Though we're also describing a game that I think starts to get very niche. The more that we think is cool going into it, I think the chances of it. But at the same time, a good example is the fact that games blow up that have unorthodox ideas all the time in them, and they blow up way bigger than anybody would have ever thought. This
would be a game where Sony has to put like $15 million out of just paying streamers to play it, and then it would be massive
just to make sure that it gets a foothold. Yeah,
exactly.
I think I agree with that, sadly.
I do think one of the interesting things about the game you're talking about is that if you wanted to do the Tarkov thing, I don't know that they could really do this, but they would when you start the game, you pick a faction, and then that's the faction you're stuck with for the entire game. So then that Tarkov mode is like you guys going into like a decommissioned military zone, or like the scene of a big battle, and you're picking up the scraps of the battle to kind of help your people. But again, I just don't.
And you can choose different. You can choose different factions within. Yeah, I that's kind of my thing too. And I think if The Last of Us does it, you can make multiple. You can make multiple people, right? And per character that you have, and you can only have 3 or whatever. But say there's 3 factions, and you can create 3 characters. And if you want to, all 3 of those characters can be on the same faction with their own subclass or their own class, or they can be on different factions within the same class. That would be interesting.
Yeah, it would.
So, but I think I wouldn't be surprised, Chris, is your pitch for what you think is a good live service game factions? Because I know we've talked about that quite a bit, actually.
I'm fair. The longer it takes, the more I'm pretty sure it's just going to be a Tarkov type thing. I would hope to God. It's like Rust and Tarkov combined.
You'll never get me off that game if it's Rust and Tarkov combined for Last of Us quality.
I would be so in.
Well, Chris, like you were talking about, right? When you replayed The Last of Us 2, I literally just want Last of Us 2's gameplay in something that's not, and I don't even mean anything. like right now, I would love to just be playing The Last of Us 2 because it feels great. I like the game, but I don't necessarily want to play that game for the emotional weight of all the story stuff that's going on right there. I just want that gameplay. If you can put that in something that I can play where I can just put it on and then bull crap with my friends, that game feels so good.
Or even like
the fact that The Last of Us 1, I think felt fine, but not excellent by any means. It was fine and it served the thing. The Last of Us 2 is probably one of the best feeling games of entirely of last gen. It's so fun.
Well, it could
just
be like
physically play it.
Red Dead if it has to be, because like Red Dead 2 is really super in depth for like the single player, but they've cut a couple things back a hair for the online aspect of
it.
So like I know in Last of Us 2, like you have to hold, what is it, triangle, I'm gonna guess, because that's what it was in the first game, to pick up items, to go through and pick up everything. Like you open a drawer, you have to hit triangle again. But there's actually an accessibility where whenever you open a drawer, you just auto pick up everything. So I'm sure that they would actually incorporate that in the multiplayer, so you don't have to hit all the buttons.
Yeah, even though having it to where you have to pick stuff up and being vulnerable would be interesting.
Yeah,
one of the things that the game does is like, and I don't really think of this as a spoiler anyway, but there's occasionally that the game will have it's where you stop at a weapons bench to upgrade, and as soon as you get to your weapons down, you find out the area wasn't empty and they attack you, and that sense of like surprise, that'd be great for the multiplayer if it wasn't scripted. Like literally, it's like, hey, there's a weapon upgrade bench here, and you can use it, but the entire time you're in it, you're vulnerable. So if you're playing with friends, your friends, you guys need to guard each other and make sure no one comes to get to you. Yeah, it's kind of like the idea of going to the drop boxes or whatever. Yeah. It's like, hey, while you're in the loadout box, we're going to try and make sure nobody comes up.
Well, that's the thing too. Is like in Warzone, you'll be sitting there for like a couple seconds in the menu trying to figure out what gun you're getting and stuff like that. Then you'll hear pop, 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 like right next to you. And you're like, oh, like I'm gonna die.
Yeah. So that's I think Factions is a clear, obvious choice, and I would be really surprised if part of why we haven't seen anything from it is because Naughty Dog have got their core of what they think they want it to be, and they're looking like, all right, Bungie, you tell us what we can add into this to make it sticky and what people want to see and how to monetize it and how to get a stream of content that people find, good enough. There's a lot of questions that come into that place of it. Maybe Naughty Dog wants to learn how do you make a good season? What makes a good season pass? And you can look at all those things. So do you have another idea, though, Chris, that you think of?
I have a couple. I'd really like them to do a card game. Like a Gwent, but like of all PlayStation characters. Be super in.
And launch a physical version next to it.
Yeah.
That's something people miss out on sorely. Is like, I will like, if Gwent was a full-on competitive card game, I would be playing it right this second. Yeah, if they would release packs for Gwent and like you could go to tournaments for it, like we do Yu-Gi-Oh and Magic, absolutely all hands in.
Oh, if they hadn't killed Gwent for PS4, I would still be playing it. Me and Sean, who we play Destiny with, he was like a top ranked player in the world, and I wasn't as good as him, but I was close. I was like in the top percent of the ladder, so like I would still be playing. He would still be playing.
Well, it looks like they're doing a new Gwent. So
it's a single player standalone game.
Instead of going multiplayer.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate. I mean, it's cool because I do like Gwent even in the single player mode of The Witcher, but the online aspect is always a cool idea.
I hope when Sony buys CD Projekt Red, they bring back the console version of Gwent, even if it's PlayStation exclusive. That would make me very happy as a player.
Hold on. Does Sony buy CD Projekt Red, and then CD Projekt Red finally gets to make the Days Gone that they were trying to buy?
No, CD Projekt Red makes Bloodborne 2.
Oh, boy.
Bluepoint's already making Bloodborne 2.
Oh, so by the way, do you want to throw a little GeForce Now talk into Saul's ear? Sorry, you weren't here last week.
Wait, what happened?
Crysis 4 was announced, which I think you saw, and it was part of the GeForce Now leak. And he's like, "So does this mean that all of Saul's worries about this not actually being real?" Or
to be fair, Crysis 4, after hearing all the Crysis remasters and stuff, makes perfect sense.
Yeah, exactly.
But it also makes perfect sense being in the GeForce Now leak.
What about Helldivers 2, which is also announced, and that
still does not make sense to me. That still does not make sense. I'm not the only one that thinks that makes no sense.
Yeah, but also maybe all that is that Sony were like, maybe a Helldivers 2, and then they started making it. Someone's like, no. And then it's just to
be fair,
it's like a vestigial tale that's just in there.
You can say that
Sony does not own Helldivers.
Yeah, of course. They don't, but they may have been talking to the developer because Helldivers was a partnership with PlayStation to where Sony spearheaded like, hey, we're going to do marketing for this, and it's going to be one of our PlayStation Loves Indies games.
So, Brett, how are you going to be divisive among us? We have not actually Among Us, but we already have Tarkov times 2 in a weird way, and then playing card game. Where you come in?
Okay, mine is actually
Collectathon and Racer.
No, my thing is, and I think that the go-to game to look at as an example of why this works, and the fact that Sony was heavily involved in it, so they should know this more than anyone, is that Rocket League is a car-based game that understands how to make a car-based game into a games as a service.
Car combat-based game.
Well, I don't
know where
really.
you're going.
Well, no, it's not even entirely that. Even though both of my ones that I'm looking at are car combat, but the thing is I don't even know that I don't consider Rocket League to be car combat. But you could definitely do this with car combat, and I think part of the big things that happened with Destruction All-Stars is that they had these little ideas of like, oh, well, people like this Fortnite weird style, so we can do that. We can have it to where you can, have these different crazy looking characters that you want to play as, but the characters don't really matter that much, right? But we're going to let you be able to get them out of the car. But once you're out of the car with them, you don't really have any special things with them. The special thing with them is their car ability. So it's like everything about Destruction All-Stars was like they were trying to look at other games as a service and make one, and it just did not work.
Yeah.
But they didn't really look at the core of what people like about them. I think if you really look and you study and maybe even go and, Sony have a good relationship with Psyonix. There's no reason that they can't go and be like, well, I say that because Psyonix has every reason to not want Sony to put out a good car race, a car game as a service thing, right? Because then that starts to encroach on Rocket League to a degree. But my overarching point is that Rocket League has shown that this can be done. Even though one of the things I was going to ask y'all coming in, and I just hadn't asked yet, but it's a good time as any. Do you guys agree that there seems to be a nature of games as a service being disproportionately leaned toward shooters and or first person games? Not even necessarily first person shooters. They can still be third persons, but either first, third person shooters or otherwise first person games like Sea of Thieves and like Grounded and stuff like that Xbox has going. Do y'all agree with that? Or do you think there's a lot of examples of games as a service that aren't really in the shooter sphere? It seems like most of them are.
There's definitely, shooter sphere, sure. But like there's third person stuff like Division 2. Even though it's still ongoing. You have Ghost Recon games that are still ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
So there's definitely a spot for them for people who do prefer third-person shooters. But yeah, first-person shooters.
But shooters in general seem to be one of the biggest go-to genres,
right?
Whether it be third or first person.
That's why my SOCOM game has the best of both.
For games as a service. So yeah, that's been my Destiny dream forever.
Which is weird because now you can play weirdly in third person in some instances, and it feels really weird to go to the tower and be third person, and then to go to the helm and be first. I thought I was glitching whenever I first logged into the helm.
I was like, "What's going on?" But yeah, so it's good that there are examples of games as a service that are not that. But you can look at other ones, right? If you want to look at games as a service that aren't that, you have games like League of Legends is I wouldn't consider it a shooter. It doesn't, but it's more of it's a MOBA. So MOBAs are a good example of games as a service that don't necessarily go to the shooter thing. But I think both of mine either are being made already or one or the other is being made, and that's kind of hard to completely pin down. I do think that Sony, looking at a Twisted Metal show that they haven't found funding for, as far as it looks like right now, they have a pitch together and they're shopping it around, but nobody's actually agreed to do the, to fund it. So there's that. And I think it makes a ton of sense to try and make a Twisted Metal game alongside that, but then really look at how do you make Twisted Metal into a games as a service type of game. And maybe you look at some of the things from Rocket League on that, because there is a competitive aspect to that. But then how is that much different than what Twisted Metal already was? And Twisted Metal Online already existed to a degree, and it didn't really do that hot. It kind of had bad networking stuff because of Sony's stuff. But I don't know as much at how you make Twisted Metal necessarily into that. But I think Twisted Metal is also a little bit more of a niche and older thing. I think maybe what you do is you look at something like MotorStorm, and you think, how can we bring MotorStorm back forth? Still have this element of car combat, which this goes into my talk about new IP versus old IP, because they could have done MotorStorm. Everything about Destruction All-Stars could have just been MotorStorm.
Yeah, I mean, true.
But they chose not to because they thought new IP doesn't carry the baggage or expectation. So maybe they don't do MotorStorm. But in the long run, I think a car combat, whether it's with existing IP or new IP, a car combat game that really understands how Rocket League exceeded, but translates it to where it's not so sport focused of trying to do something with the balls, but instead of looking at the actual who ends up on top, is a good answer.
Yeah.
I did say for a long time that Twisted Metal Battle Royale makes a ton of sense to me, and I still think it does. But the question there is a lot like Apex. How do you change the game from season to season to make it feel different enough and change the meta enough that you can continue to have fun with that game? That's a hard question to answer, and I'm not sure what that is. Do you rebalance and rebuff cars every season? Do you do like Destiny does, where people look and go, this season of Destiny is the season of the fusion rifle, because fusion rifles are just tearing people up, but next season a lot of people are speculating that rocket launchers are going to get a big buff.
I think it's a combination of rebuffing and changing up, and then adding new cars, new variants, and new maps.
See, that I would imagine that for every car you'd want to have you'd want to have the car, and then you'd want to have subclasses that the car can use.
Yeah.
How does the car? But then you also want to make sure that you're looking into what the car is, right? Sweet Tooth's vehicle is a big, bulky vehicle.
Yeah, it's a
in all the games, it's slow. It doesn't really make sense to make that car quick because it's supposed to be a heavy hitter. Now, maybe you can change extra things to how it does damage.
Yeah.
What kind of weapons are on this version? You could do stuff like that. Like a cool thing that Twisted Metal 2012 did was, or 2013, whatever year it was that you could transform. His special has where you could transform Sweet Tooth's car into a mech and run around and shoot people, and that was awesome. But you can make that a subclass, and then you can have other subclasses where, well, what do you want the specials to be? Much like if you look at something like Destiny, right? Because combat comes in, you do want to have that thing of like you build towards that ultimate. And used to, you'd get special ammo, but now you make it to where if you shoot enough people and you do enough damage, you build that up, and then you can do it.
Yeah,
now,
it's like,
do you add gear into that? Do you add parts that you put on the car that can have different effects?
I don't think you
Seems
go that
like a
far.
bad idea, right?
Maybe certain guns you could add.
Yeah, are the guns not inherent to the vehicle? Instead, are the guns something that you equip and you can min-max your build?
Yeah, see, something Call of Duty has always done, up until recently actually, has done really well, was the camo system. So if you wanted gold camo, you're like 1,000 headshots away from it. And then
that's true.
If you wanted like this weird digital camo, you got to get 500 regular kills. And then the red digital camo is 700 headshots. So you grab that gun and you intentionally get headshots with it.
Mm-hmm.
Destiny, Exotic Catalyst. You use this gun 100 times or 200 times and get kills with it, get the catalyst.
And then it changes the way the gun works.
So you could have, like Sweet Tooth could start out with 3 different cars who all operate a little differently with their specs, with different weapon systems. But to unlock weapon systems for each variant, you have to use that variant X amount of times, and then maybe do X amount of different things. And then on top of that, you could have microtransactions and it be cosmetics, because we just know they're going to be in there somewhere.
Yeah,
but then you could also unlock special cosmetics through doing, place top 3 using this weapon set within, 10 ranked matches or something.
Sure.
And you recycle people's ability to play like that constantly. At least for people like me.
What's really unfortunate is that I do feel like there was this element of Destruction All-Stars trying to get over the problem of every other games as a service. And actually, I don't know on Apex. Does Apex have vehicles in it, Chris?
No.
Or Saul?
No.
My assumption is no. Or does it?
It does.
It does, but they don't have. They're not the same as Call of Duty. Like, you can't kill anyone. They're just for traversal.
Okay, but they're still in there. All right.
Yeah.
So this is something that plenty of people talked about. I know it's not an original thought, but the problem with all games, but again, Rocket League manages well without this. One of the things I thought was cool about Destruction All-Star is, okay, you get past the part of no matter what you do, a car game as a service feels like you're always in a car. But then you have things like PUBG and Apex and Call of Duty that introduce cars, and then Halo and Call of Duty's thing, car combat, Battlefield, a good example of that, combat with vehicles.
Yeah.
So then you go, well, if those games already have that, then what makes Twisted Metal special? Now, maybe what we just talked about is what makes it special, because you're making the car the big thing instead of the person. And that maybe is the solve for that. But then you have things like PUBG right now, which I feel like is doing this PUBG's kind of doing this added thing to where suddenly it's MotorStorm. You get on vehicles and then you can shoot on vehicles, or I don't know if you can shoot, but I know you can like punch. And one of my favorite things about MotorStorm is like when you were doing races and stuff, the car combat aspect of MotorStorm was that you couldn't do anything besides like ram into people, or like if you want a dirt bike, you could punch other people off dirt bikes, or you could punch the cars and do damage over time. But normally dirt bikes were quicker, so it worked out. So when you look at that, the answer of all these things, like, okay, if you make a MotorStorm, do you let your people get out of the vehicles? And it looked like Destruction All-Stars is trying to do that. Like, well, we're going to make it car combat, but we're going to have it. What happens when your car gets destroyed? Because then you have to wait. You're more vulnerable, but you can also go get things that help you once you get your car back.
Yeah.
It was a good idea on paper with execution that didn't quite hit the mark. And I don't know if I want the answer for Twisted Metal to be that the driver gets out of the vehicle and then once you're playing as Sweet Tooth, he has his own thing. It seems like a bad idea
I don't want that
for Twisted Metal.
Yeah. For Twisted Metal, sure.
So I don't know. I mean, but I like the idea of making it to where if you're going to have 10 live service games, my hope is that Sony isn't just pumping them all full of shooters, because I
doubt it. Yeah.
I think part of what happens with games like, what was it, Hyperscape? What was that game, the Ubisoft game, Chris? Was that it? Oh, you're
yes, it was Hyperscape.
Okay. Hyperscape is a good example of when you're competing with games as a service, you're competing with games as a service. But then on a smaller level, you're competing with other games that are in the same subgenre as what you're doing.
Right.
And one of the things that Hyperspace had to deal with, Hyperscape, is that at the end of the day, it's just another battle royale shooter.
Yeah.
And all other games have already been there, and people are entrenched and loyal to those games. And if Sony thinks they're really going to come out without something that's really unique and interesting, and are going to steal a lot of Fortnite players, Apex players, Warzone players, it's going to be hard. They might get lucky and do that with 1 to 2 of those games, maybe. But past that, the answer has to become that you're looking at games as a service that isn't that. You got to look at something like Sea of Thieves. Sea of Thieves doesn't really have to think about any other game because no other game is a first-person pirate sim.
Right.
That's also a game as a service.
Yeah.
So you're like, aha, that's the solve. So Sony has to look and go, what doesn't really exist or what doesn't have a lot of competition so that we have a chance of this game surviving.
Open world ninja stealth game.
Maybe that
we got that kind of vampires now.
Right?
I think about it though.
So, well, that's true. But if you look at that, one of the things that one of our patrons, Mark, was saying in the Discord, TT Dog, I think it was him. I know he at least responded to it. Was this idea of 10 seems like a lot, right? But there's this idea that some people are having where, what is the 10? Is the 10 because Sony wants all 10 of them to be actually successful and anticipates they'll all be successful? Or is the 10 really that 4 of the 10 will actually continue to stick around and that they're making 10 so that they have a higher chance of getting a couple that stick?
Right.
That's the question. And then how does that view look? He kind of posited that, like, if that's the case and Sony's making 10 games and only expecting a few of them to go, then that means that they're going in thinking that these games are not that good. And therefore, why would another player look at that and want to put time into any of them? It's true. Because the chances are that they'll be shut down.
It's the Google thing of like how many... Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say there's one other thing that we already know what some of these games are, and I think it'll make people feel a lot better. You ready? MLB 22 the show, MLB 23 the show, MLB 24 the show, MLB 25 the show, MLB 26 the show.
That's 4 of them.
That's half. That's 5.
That's if
you count 22.
Oh yeah, so you're right.
More than half.
MLB 22 hasn't come out yet. You're right.
Right. Yeah. So more than half of the 10 are most likely MLB games. So really, that
I think so as well.
Looking at 5 games.
But you bring me back to my thing of that's the question, right? MLB The Show is a different release every year that you have to buy an individual release on. Is it really a games as a service?
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's
the way it's...
I mean, I think
Diamond
so as well.
Dynasty,
but then,
as someone who put 200 hours into it, definitely is.
Okay, I understand. But listen, same argument can exist for why Uncharted 4 could be seen as a games as a service game.
Here's the answer to your question, though. It's because we established earlier. It is... games as a service is constituted by how long the player base wants to carry the game. If the player bases for sports games only want to carry them for a year, until the roster gets updated.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So I think I would still play 21 if the season wasn't over.
A true sports games as a service, in my opinion, and again, I'm strictly saying that, if I was going to look at what makes a games as a service and what makes that, a true sports games as a service is what people have been talking about for a while, in that you buy a game and then every year, just like Destiny has their thing, you pay for the new season,
They'll never do
the
that,
new
though.
roster update.
They'll never do that. It's like Madden
They
back in
never
the day
will.
when Madden Forever was a thing of like, you only pay $30 for a new roster. Why would they do that when you could pay $30 more than that $30 for a brand new game? Because they're just going to keep selling it to you.
Yeah, why don't they just? Why
Why
don't
keep buying it?
Yeah, but also, why don't they just make you do? How much money does Destiny Witch Queen cost?
$60.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Why don't they
$60.
just have it to where every year they give
It's $60.
they say here's the new expansion, it's $60,
I think-
and instead of
I-
having to release a different product every year, they just do that.
I think it has
Well,
to do
I
with
mean-
an attachment rate of people going to the store and buying the game.
Maybe.
It's part of their
I don't know.
addiction.
You guys are missing the big thing, and this is why I was kind of pushing back on MLB being a service. They
Go ahead.
can Diamond Dynasty restarts every year.
Even if you don't buy the new game.
Well, no, you can use your 21 team in 21, but the 2021 team that I spent probably $150 on does not carry over to 22. So I start from scratch in MLB 22, which is why
So I would argue that
they will never.
that's why I argue that they don't have that. It's not a games as a service in my view of it, because
it's a games
you're
as a
leaving
service.
everything in that game in the past.
No, see, but I guess I think of them as differently than that, right? MLB The Show requires me to log on every single day to do my challenges, to do my
That's a games as a
to
service
do my
there.
guards, to earn new cards, to build up the points to get new cards, to do challenges to unlock new cards. That is a games as a service. Like Apex is more of a game as a service because it's a continuing game, but Call of Duty and Uncharted, the way we were talking about it, just playing matches to level up a battle pass is just another form of XP, which is a core of those games. And they're not jobs in the same way that I am at a distinct disadvantage if I don't do the challenges in MLB so that I can get this 99 overall card for my team. I don't think that.
So you're saying looking at them with a 1 to 2 year multiplayer window, the difference between them is that the ones that are made like Call of Duty normal, not Warzone, Call of Duty normal and Uncharted 4, is that while they may want you to play as often as they can get you to play, the game is not literally designed to basically incentivize you to play every single day if you can.
Exactly.
Okay, that's
Duty,
fair. I mean,
well,
I still look at the idea of a game as a service continuing on, but I get what you're saying. It monetizes in the same way and it incentivizes you in the same way, even if at the end of it all you leave it behind at the end of that year.
Well, but even this is a little pedantic, but whatever. What is the difference between spending $60 on MLB The Show 22 instead of updating the roster for MLB The Show 21 for $60? There's no difference, so it doesn't change the live service aspect. It's just exactly what you were saying before of buying the roster for a certain amount of money and then playing it. So I don't think
I think the difference is I would view it more as a games as a service for the way that I look at them, and I'm not saying you're wrong. I mean, I get where you're coming from, but I think that you could still do everything you're talking about I say actually everything except for one thing. You could have it where you don't lose things. Now you could have it to where it's all about, I guess, how you phrase it too, though, right? Because this idea of you buying packs and doing everything, that's that character, when you're buying these characters, that's that character for that season. And I'm assuming, maybe wrong, but probably not, that when you buy these packs, the stats around the people that you're doing are based off of their performance in whatever given year that they're doing. And then when the new game comes out, even if you get that player again, their stats and everything are probably different based off of what their year was like in baseball. Is that pretty accurate? So
exactly.
In that sense, that's kind of not too unlike Destiny in the idea of like sunsetting stuff. If we're just looking at Destiny as a good example, mainly because it's the one I play the most. So sunsetting things, right? That's how they could go about making this feel a little bit more like one where you do continuously update it, but the game just continues to update. You don't have to necessarily buy it. It's just called MLB The Show, and there's a new season every time that there would have been a new game, the same way as there would be, and then have it to where at the end of any given season of Diamond Destiny or whatever it's called, Diamond Dynasty, that you just sunset those cards because that's not the player's stats this season. And then you have a game that feels like one, and then you might have one element that's able to continue on, but I don't know. I think games as a service, part of the problem is that it's probably able to be far more broadly defined than really anybody, including you, who's trying to include this into it, right? And you're probably right. And the thing is that there might be a game that you don't look at as a game as a service an idea that wouldn't be one that probably could be one. It's just all about how you build it and how you monetize it and how you incentivize it. And then I guess that's to that end, maybe games as a service is still pretty nascent, and it probably truly is pretty nascent, and we're going to see it change a good bit in the coming months and coming years. But I don't really know because I don't play enough of them. That's starting to change as I've gotten more into Halo, Sea of Thieves, and Destiny. But at the same time, what I'm kind of learning is that I can only really play one at a time for myself. Because all I played was Sea of Thieves. Then all I played was Halo. And guess what? Since I've been back on Destiny, I've not played Halo unless Blaze has been like, hey, you want to play Halo? And I hop on for a few matches. But I have not played Halo of my own volition for probably the past month.
Yeah, well, that's what kind of what I think of games as a service as is like games as a service are jobs. Then I don't think...
see, when you said that,
MLB
I thought you meant for the developers to where it's like it's a continuous project that just continues to stretch on.
No.
But I get what you mean. You're saying it's a job for the player.
Right, exactly. I think that's the difference between multiplayer games, which are designed for like Halo. I'll drop in and play a few matches when my friends want to. Whereas if you don't play Destiny on Tuesday Reset, you're not going to get that platinum. Right?
Oh, I won't.
If you don't get your pinnacles...
Halo tries to do this thing in a very different way. It doesn't work right yet. But they're like, hey, if you don't play and hop on this week, then you have no chance of getting this weekly prize, which is just the same emblem we gave you the week before for a different thing. The draw isn't the same because it's more annoying that why did this emblem that I got not work on everything? It's an emblem. And so you're like, oh, great. I get sacrifice for the fourth week in a row. Thank you, Halo. Yes, that's such a driving thing to play. But see, where Halo is exceeding, even though I still haven't cared that much, is like, oh, hey, it's the Fracture Tenrai event, and you can come get this armor that's only available if you play throughout these limited times. Oh, hey, here's the cyberpunk whatever thing where you can get these weird 80s synthwave looks, but only if you play during this 2-week event. And then kind of like you're talking about, I won't get the platinum or get the right power level if I don't make sure every week I play. But in Halo, I won't get these cool cosmetics if I don't make sure I play. Still very different, though.
I mean, but
you're right.
The cosmetics don't fundamentally impact your gameplay, which is the difference.
Absolutely,
cosmetics
true.
are cosmetics that will probably be sold in the store in a couple of months. Like, if you don't keep up with Destiny, if I don't keep up with MLB, I'm at a disadvantage. And I think that's a distinct difference in what a games as a service is to me.
So do you currently view Halo Infinite as a games as a service?
No.
Interesting. I do. But
Why?
I did based off of my current understanding. Same thing. Challenges, right? Because these things didn't exist in the last few Halo games.
I'm about to have to go.
Oh, you're fine. We can go ahead and wrap up. We don't have to do anything more. But yeah, that's my thing. I mean, I look at this, or at least I'll say this. This is the closest the Halo's been to a games as a service than any time before it. So if nothing else.
I guess I'll rebuttal and then we can end it. Call of Duty Modern Warfare, Call of Duty 4 had the same challenges Halo does, just for different ways. It's not
fair enough.
So I think that's
But yeah, it's more of the battle passes and seasonal event things that in my mind show that than even the normal challenges. But I feel you nonetheless. All right, we got to wrap things up.
So you guys,
Saul has got stuff to do.
Yeah, you guys know where to find us. If you want to follow us on Twitter, go to Triangle SQRD. Our Discord is linked down in the description below. You can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/Nartech. And of course, you can find us on most podcast services around the realm. If you come across a podcast service we're not on, let us know and we'll do our best to get on it. And of course, we appreciate everybody stopping by and listening and or watching. You could always help the show out by leaving a review if you enjoyed it, or if you disliked it. Criticism's always welcome. And of course, you can support the show by telling friends and sharing it across the internet. There is one last way to support the show, and I think everybody knows where this is going. You could, for as little as $1 a month, you can hit us up on patreon.com/nartech, where you really do help the show out. We talked about in the coming weeks that Chris is flying down, and we're actually that some of that money is coming through to bring the boys together and be able to have a live stream, a bonanza, and hang out and bring you guys episode 225 or actually it'd be 200. What am I? Wait.
250.
250. I'm so out of it right now. 250 in a grand manner. So we really appreciate everybody who does follow. And of course, you get your live names right out on the show at the end of every episode. So I'll let Brett do that. But community's take. What do you guys think? What? Actually,
Pitch us your game.
Pitch us your live game. And like I said, you can answer this community's take at our Discord, Twitter, YouTube comments if you want to. Nobody does that. And of course, our Facebook group. I forgot about that. Facebook at Triangle Squared at PlayStation Podcast. We have a lot of opportunities there too. So
Discord's always linked in the description below. If you already said that, sorry, I was making sure we did it.
You're fine. But we thank everybody for joining us for episode 247. We'll see you guys next week for episode 248.
All right, guys.
Thank you.
Big shout out to our patrons, the Lord Corgi, Salvador Garcia, Ham and Egger, Bailey Robertson, Rob Warpoint, Mark Schutz, Cypher Primus, Kyle Grimm, Richard Schaefer, Rude Days 93, Joshua Lago, Kevin Bacon Bits, Luke Rabbit, Danny Villalobos, Solitary Red, Jehudi MD, Sean, Josh Ayers, Derek Porter, Constantly Kinney, Matthew Green, Sean Santarud, Steven Salazar, Shadowist, and my name is Dan. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Dude.